niggas have motion except for me. There has to be one real nigga left in America, in this damn country.
Somebody had to do it. I am the chosen one. Somebody had to do it.
Can a nigga live? Can a nigga live? Please.
Girls are here to be sexy for me. Throw it back on a nigga. And that's why you're gonna drop that ass for a nigga, because you were put here to drop that ass for a nigga.
Oh
And we're going to look into that.
What do we do about our country with that? Because we have radicals on the right as well. We have radicals on the left. People are watching all of these videos and cheering.
And we're going to look into that.
What do we do about our country with that? Because we have radicals on the right as well. We have radicals on the left. People are watching all of these videos and cheering. Some people are cheering that Charlie was killed. How do we fix this country? How do we come back together?
I'll tell you something that's going to get me in trouble, but I couldn't care less. The radicals on the right oftentimes are radical because they don't want to see crime. And we're going to look into that.
That was President Trump just today completely rejecting the both sides argument. Shout out to the president. I was talking about this earlier today. The moderates are pretty much effectively dead at this point, and I don't mean that. That was a poor choice of words. Rest in peace to Charlie Kirk. But this is what we were discussing earlier. The moderates, they're not a thing anymore, and President Trump has got another 3 years to really ratchet up the tension and the pressure that he can put onto the left wing. I heard earlier that he was finally investigating the Soros Foundation and all those connections, and we'll see what comes out of that.
Reeves out front.
I didn't want to see that video. It just kind of popped up on my timeline on X. I mean, it was horrific. It was the worst thing you can imagine. And seeing that was really devastating.
Young conservatives are in shock at the apparent assassination of Charlie Kirk.
I take no pleasure in thinking this way, but things might be about to get a lot worse.
They were drawn in by the way Kirk mixed it up with ideological opponents on college campuses.
Your life began not at birth, but at conception, about 9 months before your birth.
That's your opinion.
If I wear blackface and I don't become black, why does a man who wear a dress become a woman?
It was because of his quick wit. His debate style was much different than anyone really in the conservative movement had.
The 31-year-old founder of Turning Point USA inspired young conservatives to forcefully defend their beliefs, even when outnumbered.
I think.
And this is a problem that left-wing culture has in general. I do a lot of content over on the Chitlin circuit, and I was there earlier today. Very disappointing, very, very disappointing. And I realized that the majority of them cannot defend their ideas thoroughly. And what winds up happening, because the Chitlin circuit, is they get to hide among, overwhelming numbers and just numerical superiority. But it amounts to effective bullying, essentially, is how they control the order over there. There's no argumentation, and there's no introspection. There's no real self-reflection when it comes to that, the other side of the political aisle. And what happens is that, and very, very evil spirited, I must say, like it's a fascinating thing to consider how they see themselves as the good guy, as they engage in all of the most obnoxious, reprehensible behavior. And I mean the left in general, not just the Chitlin circuit, but I am talking about you, Sharon. Very passive, aggressive, obnoxious, feminine bullshit over there.
Seeing someone that was willing to stand up to huge crowds at liberal schools was really powerful. Going to a liberal arts college in New York City and Manhattan, of all places, it can be very difficult to navigate what you can and can't talk about.
It was just this place where I felt like I could be free, and some of my closest friends in my life I met at these events.
It's hard to escape, especially in alternative media. The members of the MAGA movement who are now talking about war.
We're in a war.
Good versus evil, and an American tipping point.
This kind of
To be fair, MAGA and the American right in general has been talking like that for a long time. I mean, the war stuff probably picked up around the Obama era, but this is pretty much how it is on the right. This is how we talk over here.
rhetoric is directly responsible for the terrorism that we're seeing.
Charlie Kirk's a casualty of war. We're in this country.
Look, there is political violence on both sides, and political violence on both sides is equally reprehensible.
I think people are going to become a lot more radical. I think
What political violence can you attribute to the right wing right now? I know everybody wants to say January 6th. Okay, even if I give you that, what else you got? Because the only person dying on J6 was a J6er. Shot by the police, too. A black one at that. Really, who has been killed on the political left by the political right? If you're really going to make the argument about both sides, or even the media, somebody in the media now saying that, the majority of political violence comes from the right wing in this country, like, really? I hadn't noticed. I hadn't noticed at all. I do notice left wingers spin kicking old ladies in the forehead. Somebody stabbed a horse at one point. The very first night of the BLM riots, they shot like a retired cop. I mean, the entire BLM riot, it was political violence until they tried to take that shit into a small town. They found out real quick things are different away from the big cities. But generally speaking, political violence is left wing culture. And not only is it left wing culture, when you listen to them, they plan it, they celebrate it, they believe in it as a part of their strategy of violent communist revolution.
that goes without saying. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, you could determine, but people are upset.
These young conservatives saw Kirk as a moderate and are unsettled that someone with his views would be killed.
For somebody who I personally consider kind of a normie conservative, to be murdered, to be assassinated for those views, we're all struggling to process it.
The next person.
If being a moderate brought you to this point, of what value is moderation? What will your moderation save you from? What will your moderation protect you from? And not only that, but one more time, like, how can you tell the truth moderately? Are you seeking to moderate truth? Wouldn't that kind of make you a little bit of a liar? I mean, what is moderate anyway?
Gen Z is going to be the most right-wing generation in 50 years. Statistically speaking, there was a huge turnout of youth voters for Donald Trump. That was unexpected, something that's usually a Democratic stronghold. There's probably no individual more responsible for that than Charlie Kirk. You really can't underestimate and downplay how influential he was in activating young people and how hand in hand he was working with the Trump campaign to turn out younger voters.
As I was on the Bracy panel earlier today, because I like to do these things while I'm driving. I'm at work sometime. I got time to kill with my mind, so I like to talk while I'm driving and stuff. And I'm on these panels, and I listen to other guys come in, and they're not as far right, they're not as bombastic, they're not as offensive, perhaps, as I am, and they get put through the exact same ringer. They get treated with the exact same discourtesy and mistrust and intentional misinterpretations and whatnot. You get treated with the exact same thing. You get hit with the same bullet they were going to hit me with. And I listen to these guys try to be the nice guy and be all delicate and dainty in how they talk to the ladies, and you get hit with the same bullet they were going to shoot me with. And I watched this go down, and now that I have a phrase to capture that moment, I'm fascinated by it now. Of what use was your moderation? What value did you being a moderate provide to you in this moment? What protection did it provide to you in this moment? You know why I'm on these panels and all of these women who they have all these harsh negative opinions and they have these strong attitudes and they have all these far out ideas. You know why they have to question me all the time? Like they literally take the link and the first thing a lot of them do is, Mr. Hoodservative, I have a question for you. You know why they have questions for me? It's because I'm not a fucking moderate. Whatever I am, it's raw, it's real. It might even be too goddamn much, but it's not moderate. Moderate doesn't buy you love. And I'd rather your hate anyway. At least we're being real. At least we're being honest now. That's what I mean about I'd rather have real enemies than fake friends. Because I can count on real enemies. Fake friends, you never know what the hell they might do to you.
And I would just say this, echoing what David said, which is you don't have to agree with the damn thing that he said, but he did it the way you're supposed to. He showed up and he debated people and he engaged them to their faces. He wasn't a keyboard warrior. He wasn't threatening people. That is how a civil society conducts itself. You go to places and you have debates on the issues of our day. And that's what he modeled. So any of his acolytes who are taking it a different direction, you're not honoring his legacy. Gen Z is going.
Now let's talk about the legacy of Charlie Kirk. He did a lot of work to bring young people to the conservative movement. He did a lot of work to argue the values and the points of being a right wing conservative. And I think it was commendable. It was excellent. Very few people can do what he did, which means his loss is irreplaceable. His position in the conservative and the new conservative history books is already solidified. But he is no longer with us. And there is a void. And you know what they say, nature abhors a vacuum. And so I want to start off this next segment with some words from Nick Fuentes, his call to action. Because there is now a path, so to speak. It's a very symbolic position we're at. Because Kirk was the moderate voice, and even on the left wing, there is no real moderate left, if there ever was. And the voices you have now on the left, especially in terms of young male figures of people that can attract the young male audience or just the youth in general, you have Nick Fuentes and you have Hassan Piker. Let's take a listen to Nick for a minute.
Trade your sword for a cloak. Be as clever as a serpent and as innocent as a dove. This is my message. Every young adolescent man watching this, everybody whipped up, boomers too, boomer waffin that's out there, every person that is outraged by this, every person that wants change, I give you the same message. Trade your arms for a cloak. Be as clever as a serpent, as innocent as a dove. Write your interior life. Write your conscience. Put your conscience and your attentions in alignment with God. Be as innocent as you can be. Try your best to live a moral life. But don't be stupid. Don't be naive. With Charlie Kirk's death, his Turning Point organization, the fate of it is uncertain. Charlie Kirk, I'm going to be honest with you, I saw him as an establishment figure. I saw him as too moderate. We must fill up the ranks of these campus organizations with Septemberists. Forget about the free market. Forget about pro-Israel, free market, whatever. It is incumbent on all adolescent young men that want to save this country, that want any future for your children, that want to preserve what your ancestors built, to get involved in politics and to do more. And when I say politics, do not mistake what I mean. I don't mean go and vote for more Republicans to bomb Palestine. I do not mean to vote for more Republicans to cover up the Epstein files. Vote for more Republicans to squander and botch something like this so badly as they have. I mean, you need to become a human Swiss Army knife, become unkillable. I'm not this guy, but get in the gym. Get in the gym, do tactical training, become hard to kill so you can protect yourself and your family. Learn the rules of the game and use them to your advantage. Get involved in politics. Get involved in a campus organization tomorrow. Get involved in a campaign, not with the mind towards I'm going to put up stickers, not with a mind towards we're going to get the vote, with a mind towards we are in this struggle until we die. By any means. We are in this struggle for the long haul. Until we win, none of us are safe. None of our families are safe. We will keep being attacked. Get used to it. You'll see more of it. I hope we don't.
And right now, there is a lurch in the right-wing universe. And I understand not everybody is a fan of Nick Fuentes, and that need not be the case, but this is who you have right now on the front line. This is who is rallying the troops right now. And again, we're just taking a look at the two sides, at the two choices for the young people right now.
Pray that we don't, but we will. Get involved for the people that can't, for the people that aren't with us, for the people that aren't able. Start your career now so that one day you can be in a position of real power, real money, real influence, real government power. And not today, not tomorrow, because listen, that's not how these things happen. Rome is not built in a day. This kind of societal change, people that are looking for a quick fix, what are we going to do? You're not going to like the answer because it is not.
And David, maybe there are more choices that I'm not really aware of at the moment. Name somebody on the left who can pull in 147,000 live listeners on a Rumble platform. Not even YouTube, which is the big mainline thing. This is Rumble. This is like the minor leagues compared to YouTube. 147,000 live listeners as I was reported. Now, whatever you think about him personally, that's a small army effectively. That's a whole town, a small city. You say 189? Well, even higher than my reports, right? It matters not how we feel about him. This is the guy who's in the spot right now.
Not that we are going to go out in some climactic, ecstatic, orgiastic, violent action like a movie. That never delivers change. It never delivers anything good. What does deliver real change is the thankless, monotonous, boring task, the oftentimes not very rewarding task of going in, day out, and dealing with logistical problems and frustrations and fighting every day so that we can be in charge.
What he's calling for right now is what the left would call the long march through the institutions, right? Instead of taking to the street as some kind of egotistical, violent, bloody revolution, which is effectively left wing fantasy, right? They would like for people on the right to put on their white suits and their hoods and go do the thing. And what he's actually calling for is a long march through the institutions. Do the simple things, right? Be the person who makes the decision. Put yourself in the positions of power. Put yourself in every room that the left has control over right now. That is his call to action. That is his battle cry. Don't go off and be reckless. Don't go be John Rambo. Don't go be John McClane. Be quiet. Be clever. Be unkillable and stay in there forever and do the thing that needs to be done.
So that we can protect our country, our inheritance, and all people. That's the solution. That's my call on all people. In the short term, this scourge in our society, it must be driven out. It must be suffocated by goodness. They must be shamed, not hurt, not injured, not maimed, but they must be shamed. They must be ostracized. We cannot associate with these people anymore.
They must pay. I think we can all agree they must pay. There will be consequence. There will be reckoning. There will be a resetting of the order. But we will not be the violent hand wielding the bloody axe. That is not what the right wing is. And as much as we may entertain fantastical notions of such things, we have to be sober and scaly-eyed about the way things work and what you really want for your children and your nation.
And a more voluntary action is you need to get involved. This is the call to action that you're not going to like. Sadly, and I've been around for a long time and I've seen it, and you may not believe me. I've seen enough of these instances. You know how this goes. Everybody's paying attention now because they saw the gory video. Everyone's in their feelings because they saw video edits and productions with music on them on TikTok. But in 2 weeks, everybody's going to be right back to their regular old lives. You know that.
And so that is one side of the political coin. Let's take a quick snapshot of your boy Hassan Piker. This is the leader of the left-wing youth movement. It's either him or Vosh, and I'm not even going to bother to put Vosh in this competition. Like,
I'm sick and tired of it. Left-wingers, liberals, you need to be fucking showing your opponent's guts on there, okay? You need to be gutting them. You need to be shanking these motherfuckers and letting their intestines just ride on stage. What the fuck is this shit, man? Slice them up. Slice them and fucking dice them. What the fuck is this? You cannot have a bigger fucking layup. You could not have had a bigger fucking layup than a horrible candidate like Herschel Walker. Sure, he was prepared very well. And Herschel Walker actually had a good
thing we do need to make sure we do. We got to keep attracting younger viewers that, grow up on TikTok, when they're 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, even though they shouldn't be.
3, it's like all here. Now this guy's down. He's dead. These guys are like...
Sugar Bum, why would you be disgusted by the Charlie Kirk assassination when that is exactly what modern progressives and liberalism is really about? Maybe you're unaccustomed to the reality of it, but they've always been about the violent overthrow of the American institution. And so for you to be disgusted now, I think this is a moment of growing up for you, Sugar Bum. You can call them lies, but that is your unwillingness to believe what's right in front of you.
Wounded. They're not even like They're not even running. They're not even like cowering and running away and screaming in fear. There's like, okay, well, they did it. We got our shots. Okay, is this guy done? Oh, shit. Well, okay. Well, we brought the
It's
white.
called shock, you fucking idiots. It's called shock. Anything that happens, I mean, like, holy shit, guys. If you live in Florida, I have an opportunity for you. If you want to earn $100,000, let me know. Jesus fucking Christ.
Flags. We can put that over the bleeding part, assuming he got shot in it, actually, right?
Flag.
And then this guy.
874 Bellevue Drive, and I'm gonna kill you with my AR-15. Like that's the type of messages they were leaving in this dude's office, and he's resigning. Like he's literally, this is his last term. So I think that people are a lot more radical.
It's hurt poor people that they can afford housing in Berkeley. I don't know how that works.
My understanding is that the property owners who have properties there choose just not to rent it at all.
Yeah, kill them. Kill those motherfuckers and murder those motherfuckers in the street. Let the streets soak in their fucking red capitalist bloods, dude.
Yeah, Sugar Bum, conservatives, we love the Second Amendment because of people like you. And you, well, not you personally, maybe you're a sweetheart, but all the people who vote with you, they're murderers, and they would love the idea of murdering in the name of overthrowing America. And that's why we have to have more guns than you guys. Be a sad day in America if you guys had more guns than us, right? And frankly, Sugar Bum isn't really alone. A lot of people really have a hard time accepting the truth. There's this saying that you can't really convince a person that they're being conned, right? Once a person is in the middle of being conned, it's nearly impossible to convince them otherwise. And that's kind of the reality for like Black America and then almost everybody on the left, even like you've all been deeply conned, and it's the hardest thing in the world to admit to that in the moment.
No, we gotta, the moment is clear. You gotta sick like the ACP guys on him. Okay, that's it. You gotta get one of those like Has al Dink type motherfuckers to just like eat his ass alive. Let him fight. Whatever the fuck his name is. What is it? The Albanian dude. No, we gotta, the moment is clear. You gotta sick like the ACP guys on him. Okay, that's it. You gotta get one of those like Has al.
And see, this is Hassan Piker upset with Nick Fuentes because apparently Nick got a highlight in the New York Times recently. And so Hassan is mad at that, even though Hassan is all over the mainstream media. We saw this. Let's go back to this real quick.
It's Hassan Piker.
This is my dog Kaya. I thought you legitimately were going to work out.
I can do some weights. He's a social media superstar with almost 3 million followers on the video streaming platform Twitch.
They're eating the pets.
So this is that whole masculinity thing people are talking about, huh? And he's part of a growing group of streamers and podcasters reaching young men online, a space Trump tapped into to reach young male voters.
Punch in, then you won't be able to see that he's not doing any weights.
But Hassan is not a Trump supporter.
If Fuentes starts going to the gym, if Fuentes becomes a gym bro in the next couple of years, it's a lock. That's like the one chink in his armor, really. I mean, they be trying to call him all kind of names and shit, but really, I think he's too skinny. He's too like he looks too much like an indoor kid. You need to put on some muscle to look like an outdoor kid, an outdoor guy. Cause see, Hassan, he works out. He has like gym bro exterior, but he's like a theater kid at heart.
He's a progressive, a fan of Bernie and AOC. The Democratic Party even invited him to the DNC in August. One thing we've been hearing for weeks now is that the left needs a Joe Rogan.
Yeah, I don't think that The Democratic Party can podcast itself out of this issue. Joe Rogan, he endorsed Bernie Sanders in 2020. Maybe they should do an autopsy on why he left the party. I like to work out. I'm very bro-y. A lot of people look at the optics of that and they don't like it. They think like, oh, well, he's a little toxic, isn't he? And they don't really listen to what I have to say because I'm significantly more progressive than the average Democratic campaign.
Yeah, I've heard you say when it comes to stuff that guys like, you seek that stuff out online, whether it's watching a streamer, whether it's watching guys talking about working out and fitness. You say that the right wing just dominates that space.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, I think that's why I started on Twitch, right? I know for a fact that the video game space is like people who consume this culture, people who are a part of this culture are not all right wing. I wanted to showcase to people that like, no, you can be a progressive person, you can be a leftist, and like have.
I don't think he understands it though. I think he wants to convince people to be left wing by making left wing cool. Whereas Nick doesn't embrace the idea of being cool. You know, maybe a gamer, but it's very much an indoor kid, right? And Cellian, if you will, right? And the thing is, it's not about being cool. There's a deeper issue. There's a serious, rational, cold-blooded reality that it is on us. It is incumbent upon us to confront, and that is what Nick is offering to children, not false pseudo masculinity, but sobriety and faith. Really, sobriety and Christian faith. And God damn it, the kids kind of like that shit. I didn't never think it was going to happen.
Fun at the same time.
How many people were watching your live stream on election night?
The total unique number was 7.5 million.
There's a general sense that when it comes to the world of podcasts, alternative media, I don't even know what you want to call it, that Trump did a much better job at that than Democrats and Harris.
Absolutely. I think that's true. I was a naysayer early. When I saw the Aiden Ross collab, I thought this doesn't have motion.
So this is Trump with Aiden Ross.
When Trump went on Aiden Ross's stream, I was like, it was awkward. It was weird. But then I saw Trump on Theo Vaughn, and he started talking about cocaine, and I was like, uh-oh, this humanizes him.
Cocaine a stronger
oh yeah
up?
Yeah. Cocaine
So,
will make
you're way up with cocaine more than anything else you can think of.
Cocaine will turn you.
Theo almost looked like he took a bump before he talked to the president. But Theo always looked like he just took a bump. It's hard to tell with Theo.
A damn owl, homie. You know what I'm saying?
Harris did consider going on Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
But she didn't.
So that was a mistake as well, I think, because Joe Rogan can't deliver adversarial interviews if his life depended on it.
What is it that the Democrat Party has to do differently?
Stop putting leprechauns on television. Rule number 1 for the Democrat Party: no leprechaun men ever associated anywhere near this party. No leprechaun visualizations ever. It just looks too weird. It's bad for the brand. Now I want to jump off this because the leprechaun guy is weirding me the fuck out. Like I said, Nick Fuentes, he got this piece from he got covered by the New York Times, and Hassan is having a problem with that.
I can't believe Nick Fuentes got a glaring profile like this. That's crazy. Nick Fuentes, a white nationalist problem for the right. For years, conservatives hoped the notorious white nationalists go away. Instead, Mr. Fuentes has gained more traction even while opposing the president. You want to know why this country is so far right and will continue to go along that trajectory? The only time where they offer a profile to someone who is an out and about anti-Israel guy is when that guy is a Nazi. The New York Times has written on me in the past, but when they do, it's in the style section. When the New York Times writes about me, they write it in the style section and they put a quote in there where that says Hassan accuses Israel of doing a genocide. The only
You know why they put you in the style section, Hassan? Because you're a bitch ass nigga. That's why. The New York Times knows, they like you and all, but they recognize your bitch assness. You are a bitch ass nigga, and you get put in the style section where bitch ass niggas belong.
None of these niggas have motion except for me. There has to be one real nigga left in America, in this damn country.
Time where they actually talk about the policies of a political figure in the independent side of the media, it's a white nationalist. That's insane. How do people not realize this? It's because you're hot? No, dude. It's because any sort of real left populist figure is seen as a genuine threat. This way, the New York Times can signal to its reader base that some of the most prominent figures in the anti-Israel movement are just straight up Nazis. Because if you have a guy that you honestly write about and write about the policies on, who is not a neo-Nazi and not an anti-Semite, but is expressly anti-Israel, that kind of puts a dent in this broad message.
Think about how big of a hater you have to be for you to be up there saying that I hate Israel, he hates Israel, but you love him because he's a fucking Nazi? Yeah, well, that's the OG movement, all right? How you gonna be more respected than the goddamn OG movement, all right? If that's the line of credibility that we're drawing here, he's tapping it right from the root. If you're gonna call him a Nazi, and the line is who hates Israel more, well, obviously he got more motion than you, bro. I don't know what to do about that. I don't know how to help you help yourself right now. I don't know what to tell you, bro. Go get a haircut and put on a Hugo Boss military uniform and learn how to move, bro. I don't know what else to do, bro. This is the way it is right now. That's how he made it into the New York Times. That's what not being a moderate does for you. Let me read some of these super chats. Thank you so much to Carmen. Shout out to my girl Carmen with the 199, kicking it off early. I heart you too. Thank you so much. We are just getting this shit going. Hit that like button for me. We are just getting into the real issue of Hassan Piker hates Nick Fuentes, and he can't do nothing about that shit.
Nigga, please. Serious.
And shout out to Jesse Lee with the 5-ball. Amazing, bro. You know what? There's so many amazing things happening in the last 72 hours, bro. I'm having a hard time keeping it up, bro. I really am. I'm struggling to keep up with this shit, but I'm going to do it, though.
If you think I'm here to play around with y'all, God damn it, I'm not. All right.
Come on, share your dollar. Give me your dollar. Share your dollar with me. Come on.
And then also Jamar with the $50 super chat. Thank you so much for the continued content. He says, drinks on me. You know what? Drinking this, you got them. All right, you know what? I'm stocked up for the moment, but re-up on you, bro. I appreciate you so much for that. Appreciate you so much. We're not even wasting none of this on 40 balls. I might go buy an actual bottle of Hennessy now. God damn it, I might go buy me some Hennessy. I haven't had Hennessy in forever. I feel like drinking some nigga punch. I might cam up and do something reckless when I drink the Henny. But listen, shout out to Jamar with the $50 Hennessy donation.
Come on, share your dollar. Give me your dollar. Share your dollar with me. Come on.
Give me the money. Give me the money, but I will do. Give me the money.
Yo, shout out to Jamal, man. Be like Jamal, y'all. Roll up your sleeves and smash that super chat button for me.
Hulk! Smash! Smash you! You make Hulk angry. You not like Hulk angry.
Hulk no like fighting girls.
That the New York Times has been abiding by. The notion that like maybe a lot of the critics of Israel are anti-Semitic. Jonathan Greenblatt freaked out on this. Maybe I'm expecting them to also criticize Nick Fuentes. Who knows? He responded to your vid. What did he say? He went on a rant. Not surprising. Come on, dude. He ain't that bad. He's evolving. You're so dumb, dude. This is precisely the reason why he's such a ever-present danger, dude. This mother is a skilled orator. Okay, he has decent rhetoric. That's all he has. He's also an incredibly dangerous Nazi freak. He's utilized.
That's why we love him. It really is the Nazi thing. There's something fascinating about that in 2025. I don't know what to tell you, Hassan. I don't know how to make you cope with that, but you must. You must. You know, I was on the panel on the Chitlin Circuit earlier at Sharon's channel, and they up there, having a connection and shit. And I asked them a question. And again, these niggas have trouble thinking. Something about abstract thoughts and shit. So I asked them a question that they really weren't prepared for. Why is it that your side is losing motion right now and the youth are more attracted to the right wing? There's more energy on the right wing of politics for the youth right now than it is on the left wing. How come you guys have like Umar Johnsons and shit, people that are effectively jokes, whereas like the right wing has, you can put Nick Fuentes up there, you can put Charlie Kirk up there, whether it's purely right wing politics or even like white wing politics, right? There is a white wing that's growing right now, and that is taking away a lot of energy and momentum from this multicultural, diverse left wing project. And the question is, why are you guys failing right now? Why are you guys losing your motion? Why are you falling out of why are people falling out of love with being a left wing progressive? And I would argue a part of the reason is you got nothing at the top. You don't have anything that people aspire to be like. Like for all the gym time Hassan puts in, very few people will aspire to be like him. Whereas Nick Fuentes has already built an army that got active in the real world and applied real world political pressure to their targets, right? The Goipers have been out in the world for a while. And for all of his incelish attack, and he could be literally classified as an incel, and I don't even want to fight you on those grounds, but the nigga got an army. All you got is a beard and some gay commie glasses, bro.
His already existing anti-Israel stance that is born out of the Jewish domination narratives that he believes as a Holocaust denier to reach new audiences. And he's actually reaching new audiences with tremendous success, which is precisely the reason why we have dumb in here who are named Pure Blood, by the way. Okay. Talking about how like, oh, Nick Fuentes has actually changed his mind. On what? Changed his mind on what? He still thinks that Trump is not going hard enough on mass deportations. He wants every non-white person to be deported, even though he's Hispanic himself.
The Trump administration has abruptly shifted the focus of its mass deportation campaign, telling ICE to pause raids and arrests in agriculture, hotels, and restaurants, according to an internal email. Oh my gosh. You fell for it again. Fell for it again. Are you tired of losing? Loser, 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 loser.
Refusing the Rothschild banking system, easy. Teflon all over again. Good thing about getting banned here is you can still read chat. To me, and this is very important for people to understand, to me, there is very little difference between someone who defends what Israel is doing right now and someone like Nick Fuentes. My anger and resentment for Zionism stems from the fact that it is the exact same style of ideology as the Nazis. It is fascism, okay? Nazis believe, the in-group is different. Nazis believe. The outgroup is different. The only difference between someone like Nick Fuentes and someone who is like actively defending Israel and is like an ultra Zionist is that, well, you know, Israel is currently doing a lot better, a lot more successful in terms of initiating its own supremacist ideology. While,
You know, the thing is, Nick Fuentes has been ringing that alarm, that one particular alarm bell, way longer than any of you cool kids before it was even cool. You know, back when you might wind up on a government watch list, back when you would get debanked and put on a no-fly list, he was already ringing that alarm bell. And so for people now who are getting hit to that whole issue over there, if that's really what you care about, I mean, you should listen to him talk about it. He knows a lot about that stuff, right? And so this is what I mean about he's actually the OG about this shit. And so, and the irony is, this one issue really does unify the far left and the far right. The idea that we waste way too much money over there in the Middle East and all this other shit, that is the one thing that does unify these two sides. And so when you hear somebody like Nick talk about it, he actually has a body of knowledge about this stuff that you don't really hear talked about in any of these other circles. And everybody on the left seems to be really new to just how, you know, how things really have been working. People on the left just started talking about it because, you know, genocide or whatever. Nick was on that way before anybody started getting hit with bombs in October.
also operating in broad daylight as though this is like a normal version of events. They're denying the ongoing Holocaust. He denies the past Holocaust. Okay? Dude, anti-Semitism isn't as dangerous as Zionism. Be for real. Dude, you're a absolute moron. Nick Fuentes is more aligned with the current administration. The administration has openly admitted that they're afraid of his groypers yelling at them. It's the same coin. It's two sides of the same coin. It's the same. The fuck are you talking about? I'm not saying Nick Fuentes is dangerous because, oh, he hates Jewish people. The fuck are you talking about? That's one aspect of his commentary that is wrong and abhorrent, but that's not the only aspect. What are we talking about? What are we doing here? We're now approaching the issue from an insane perspective where it's like, well, I guess, you know, as long as someone says like free Palestine, it's all right. Nick Fuentes would throw you if given the opportunity, if he actually had any sort of levers of power, if he could control the levers of power, he would throw you in the concentration camp, not just Jews, dumbass. Are we forgetting this is the dude who said your body, my choice in the immediate aftermath of Trump's victory on his election night? This is precisely the reason why I was talking.
That was so funny, by the way. That was a great YouTube internet live streaming moment when Trump wins the election and Nick Fuentes looks at the camera and says, "Your body, my choice, bitch." And then the reaction, oh my God, priceless, bro. It was so epic. It really was epic. And because the thing is, you know, that is the fear that, you know, especially like all these far left women have, you know, oh my God, the Handmaid's Tale. You know, some chicks in DC got dressed up and did like a Handmaid's Tale photo op with the National Guard down there. Like the whole thing is just it's like a sexual, some type of sex power fantasy. It's a weird thing, but it's just this issue of the left wing doesn't realize how unserious they really have become. And so a lot of people watching can see like the whole left wing has become like this cosplay venture where you claim to care about this and that, but in reality, what you actually care about is looking like you care about it. Whereas, like on the right, you have people who have literally suffered for what they believe and what they care about. And now, you know, niggas about that life. Niggas dying about that shit over here. We are not built the same, bro.
How dangerous this is.
Hassan Piker runs and hides because communism would not survive an encounter with the far right. It just wouldn't.
I'm sorry, what? Did he just say communism would not survive an encounter with the far right? Hold on. What the this guy talking about, dude? Communism would not survive an interaction with the far right? Scoreboard, bitch. What the do you mean communism would not survive an interaction with the far right? Is this guy such a Holocaust denier that he just like denies that World War II even happened? Is that what we're doing now? That's crazy.
All that sentimentalism, all that sappy, bleeding heart bullshit about free healthcare. Okay.
No, we gotta, the moment is clear. You gotta sick like the ACP guys on him. Okay, that's it. You gotta get one of those like Haz al-Dink type motherfuckers to just like eat his ass alive, let him fight.
We'll give you free healthcare too. I don't really care that much. I want to close the borders. I want to stop being harassed on the train. I want to be able to live in most of the city and not have to be a war zone. I don't want to have our country run by an Israeli fifth column, a Jewish fifth column. You would not survive that encounter, and you know that. And Hassan knows that if there were ever a dialogue, an ongoing dialogue, or even just a sit down, that whole fantasy, this bourgeois champagne socialism would not survive an encounter with an actual real American. With an actual real American,
dog.
And this is why years ago, Steven Crowder, I think, was the first person to really kick off the Change My Mind live stream format, where it wasn't always necessarily live streamed, but he would go to college campuses. He would set up his little tent, his chair, his microphone, his table, his cameras, and he would lay out his argument. He would lay out his position, and he would welcome all, respectful argument and disagreement. And it set off a series of internet clips that, they went viral, and they kind of almost to this day. And even Ben Shapiro kind of got he made his bones making college kids look retarded, right? And Shapiro, I don't think you caught him at one of those change my mind things. He was always in a more protected indoor, he's on stage talking down to the audience type of environment. But getting out there and the rough and tumble with the kids on the campus, that is what really made a lot of people look and realize, one, how stupid college is making people. Like, what are we even wasting our money on? Not even wasting our money. It's like you're wasting your children, sending them off to college at this point. And then two, what is the overall outcome of all of this, right? Where's all this going? And so once you got people on the college campuses to actually, show the world just what the youth are taught and what they believe, it kind of gave proof. It gave truth to this argument that, you guys cannot survive an encounter with a real world argument. People who actually know the truth and know how to deliver the idea and the argument in a way that lands well with almost any audience, right? You guys don't know how to do that. You can only survive if you have all the power already.
I'm Turkish. You're Hispanic. We're both American. Our existence on U.S. soil contradicts the fundamental argument that you're presenting. What are you talking about? What the is this mother talking about?
That's a son of working class people. And that's like the delicious and rich irony is that Hassan is a Nepo baby. He's a
once again, he's a Nepo baby. My worldview, if what you're saying is correct, would place me as a class traitor. You, on the other hand, are advocating for erasure of yourself. You're Hispanic, and you are advocating for the destruction of yourself, the removal of yourself from U.S. soil.
Billionaire Nepo baby who's on all the mainstream platforms. How did he get his start in media? His uncle.
There's something else I realized, and this is another thing I noticed about the nature of the left. There's this phrase that I throw at people every now and then when it applies. The issue is never the issue. The issue is always the revolution. And I realize like a lot of people on the left don't even actually realize that the issue is the revolution per se, right? And then even further, what I've come to notice is that a lot of people on the left don't necessarily have a set of principles that are like intrinsic, right? Higher principles that are greater than the self. Like even mostly I noticed this when it comes to like black folk and this pro-black thing. They have uh, a principle, so to speak, that revolves around the idea of black or blackness, whatever they may think that is. And I just had a whole argument about like, what does that really mean? And it literally means something a little different to everybody who kind of is black, and which means it almost means nothing, right? If it means anything, if it means everything, it can't mean anything exactly. So it's nothing. And like, I realized that that's kind of what's going on inside of people. There's a lack of pure principle. There's love of self in a lot of ways. There's egotistical philosophies going on, but not a lot of depth and substance and real thought.
And this is a guy lecturing us about generational wealth. Why don't we redistribute the Young Turks media opportunities? How about
Okay, fine. You know,
we redistribute?
Doesn't seem like that would put a dent in the system, but once again, normally he has better arguments. When he's duking it out with Charlie Kirk, he can present a better argument because he can showcase that Charlie Kirk is actually, because he is the logical extension of like the advocacy that Charlie Kirk engages in. The reason why the likes of Charlie Kirk fear someone like Nick Fuentes is because it shows that Charlie Kirk.
And Danny, this is exactly what I mean about a principle that doesn't revolve purely around the self, right? Danny, listen. I'm going to deal with this comment right here. They are mixed, but are against interracial marriage, which makes their very existence, which makes their very existence against their belief system. Correct. You are theoretically correct in that, right? However, what they're arguing for is not their own pure selfish existence, right? They're arguing for the civilization and the nature of that civilization that allowed them to exist in the first place. And I think these are kind of layered sequentially, like one thing exists on the structure of the other. But that is kind of the argument I'm laying out about a certain level of principle within the thinking of people on the right that you don't necessarily find on the left. At the heart of the left wing rationalization is a series of selfish rationalizations, right? Whereas if you're looking at Nick Fuentes, and this is a great example to bring up in conversation, right? Yeah, he is not purely white. He is half Mexican, half Caucasian, arguing on the behalf of and for the existence of and for the greatness of the Caucasians in general. Because as he would argue it, that is where Western civilization comes from, Caucasian people. And America is a product of Western civilization. And right now, we seem to be the last bastion and also at the same time, the forefront of Western civilization. And so, do you argue for your own selfish existence or do you argue for the Western civilization that made you possible in the first place? That is kind of the simple rationale. Maybe it's complicated, but I've worked it out long ago and it feels simple to me now.
Is fraudulent, right? He is seen as more real. But when he comes after someone like myself, he has to desperately fling in the same way that like Destiny criticizes me over. I don't know if they engaged in information sharing. I know they shared other things. Maybe they talked about their mutual hatred of someone such as myself while Nick Fuentes' dick was in Destiny's mouth. Who knows? Who knows? After a little bit of chicken and waffles, they did it over pillow talk, I think.
Contribute the Twitch subscriptions. So, you know, as long as
I like that the line of attack against me is always the same. No matter.
He's going to sit there and take shots from over there. Yeah, inside of that woke fantasy.
Also, it is kind of funny because the one thing that Nick Fuentes can always present himself in order to showcase his like infallibility, his like moral authority on the subject matter, is the fact that, you know, he's been debanked or he's been attacked and this and that. Like, you know, these institutions have come after him. The ADL talks more about me than they do about you, dumbass. The Zionist groups in this country and newspapers that work alongside Hasbara initiatives write extensively demanding my deplatforming. You supported Donald Trump. Donald Trump's own Customs and Border Patrol detained me for my opinions on Israel. So he can't even hit me on the he's not sincere about his advocacy for the Palestinians line of attack. So he just has to go back to this dumb, like, oh, he's rich, but a socialist.
They're all
Notice how, again, the one thing that unites the far left and the far right is this issue in the Middle East. It's the one thing that both sides are just like, I still hate you, but yeah, that is kind of fucked up over there.
be very confident in their ideology. But the reason that they don't want me to talk to Jimmy Dore, the reason they're screaming, he's a Nazi, but he said this, but he said that. Let him talk. We can talk.
The only counter narrative in this situation that he can apply, the only line of attack he can apply is like, oh, you're a bad guy. You're a hypocrite. You're rich but socialist. He knows that that's not a real line of attack anyway. He can't do it. He's got nothing. He says the exact same that like annoying liberals say.
And see, there's another thing. Like, you listen to a lot of people on the left wing and they give their commentary. And if you look for a left wing vision, there really is no vision that is like a positive aspirational vision, because even their utopia starts with a bloody revolution, right? You have to build your utopia on the bodies of children and old ladies and such, right? So if you go on to the right, though, and we're comparing Nick Fuentes right now as the avatar of the right tonight, there is a different kind of hopeful vision. There is an aspirational vision there. There is something that even the person who isn't motivated by anger can still latch onto.
Set off a chain reaction. I pray to God there is no further violence. I pray to God that nobody else is hurt as a result of this. I hope that it stops here. It should stop here. To all of my followers, if you take up arms, I disavow you, I disown you in the strongest possible terms. That is not what we are about. And the same goes obviously for the other side. And I want to make that very clear. It would be a profound moral, political mistake for anybody to take the bait and to engage in any kind of reprisal, retaliation, revenge. Remember, we are the good side. And what makes us good is that we have Christ. What makes Christianity and Christ so different from the other religions is that our religion is based on the bearing of suffering for the sake of even those that persecute us. An overflowing of love.
And Nick Fuentes is giving this message right now to his audience, to people that theoretically he could call to some level of violence if he chose to. When you have this many people listening to you and have this rabid of a fan base, you could probably move some shit if you really, really had a mind for it, right? And at the same time, while people on the left are pissing on the grave and tap dancing and celebrating and calling for more violence and justifying things of all sorts of natures, and it's really horrible to really watch, the left wing reaction to all of this. What it also is a moment of provocation. It's a really intense, deep act of provocation. And, he seems to have matured enough to the point, at least, where he realizes the power of the moment and he doesn't give in to the provocations of it all.
Overflowing of self-giving love. So much of it cannot be contained. an unconditional, absolute standard of love for all of God's children, even those that are misguided, even those that persecute us, even the most heinous.
SKC, I'm not in the mood to fight with you right now. I'm gonna let you have that one. Consider this a victory in that part of the conversation. Agape, nigga, okay? Agape, goddammit. All right? Let's just be done with it and move on, all right? Agape, you got that.
Among us. That is what makes us different. That is what makes us good. You think you're good? You're not. You are not good. I am not good. You are a man. I am a man. You are a sinner. I am a sinner. We cannot say.
God damn it. You know what? And this is kind of how I be looking at people when we're in these conversations, and everybody wants to get all, moralistic and start acting like they're a fucking therapist and shit. And it's like, who the hell do you think you are? You think you know something? You think you somehow have special wisdom? No, we're all sinners. We're all messed up a little bit. You're not that special.
You are not good. I am not good. You are a man. I am a man. You are a sinner. I am a sinner. We cannot save ourselves. We cannot save this world. God can save us. God can save the world. And God saves us, and God saves the world by drawing all of us up onto the cross with him. And we join not just in his glory, but in his suffering.
I'm not like I'm not a Bible thumper, and I'm not gonna take the obviously religious tone he's taking right now. But I will say this as a practical matter. I think I've learned to enjoy my life a little bit better when I embrace the suffering. Seems like the wrong word to use at times, but life is suffering. We suffer the labors of life every single day. We get up, we go to work, we pay the bills, we do the little things, we answer the phone calls, we bear the other little responsibilities that we don't even necessarily have to do it, but we do it because somebody needed us to do. And as I've gotten older and I've learned to appreciate things that I maybe haven't appreciated in my youth, I realized that life actually is better when you accept a certain level of suffering and burden. When the idea that we are meant to do, we exist to do. And if you kind of accept that a little bit, it makes the doing a little bit easier.
Real suffering, not imaginary, not a nice story, real suffering, real death, real destruction, real misery. We bear a cross like Christ bears a cross, like his disciples, like the martyrs, like the saints bear a cross. And you better get comfortable up there. Drink up. And you bear that cross, not for your kin, not for yourself, not for your children, which are an extension of yourself. You bear that cross and that suffering. You drink from that chalice for your enemies, for those that persecute you, for those that hate you, for the sake of Christ. That doesn't mean we let them hurt us. It doesn't mean we let them take over our country. But it does mean that we do not lower ourselves to their level.
There is nobody on the left wing with a more powerful voice, with a more direct and impassioned tone and delivery of a delivery of such a universal, appealing idea. Where the left has, eat the rich, right? That is the left's impassioned plea to the masses, right? Your life is suffering because the rich people have money. And if you would just eat the rich, everything would be better. Now, anybody with a little bit of wisdom and understanding and sophistication of how the world really works, understanding that eating the rich would lead to a level of starvation that the poor couldn't fathom from their position already in poverty, right? You have no idea how much worse your poverty could get. Because, we're all Americans. And being an American, most of our poor don't taste what global poverty tastes like, right? Like in America, if you're really, really fucked up in the game in America, a series of things likely had to happen to you outside of being born poor. And not only did things have to happen to you, let me not even say had to happen to you. There are things that would have had to happen to you, but then there would have been things that you also did to yourself, right? And so there's a combination of things where you kind of have to hit certain levels to really be something like poor in America. Whereas, like, globally, though, people are just born into a level of suffering that we couldn't possibly fathom.
It does mean that we do not resort to our own powers, our own machinations, our own plans, our own pride with vengeance, with retaliation. Vengeance belongs to God. God is both merciful and just. And no one can say they have faith in God if they do not have faith in God's perfect justice, which we cannot understand, which is hard to accept, sometimes impossible.
Now, here's the thing, King Pitts, you say if Nick had a powerful voice and actually resonated with people, he'd have a political career, but he will never get far in politics because he carries himself like a clown. No, no, I promise you, Nick would have been bigger than Charlie Kirk if he had not been stymied by forces that are globally significant. Nick Fuentes was literally pushed out of polite society at like 21. Bank accounts frozen, good name tarnished, put on a no-fly list. Like he really was underground, right? And so because he was actually held down, why somebody like Kirk, who never made the kind of comments that Nick was making, somebody like Kirk never asked the questions that Nick was asking way back then. Nick had to carry the cross for all that shit before it became cool like 3 weeks ago. You niggas just started noticing because there was a fight happening. You niggas started noticing when fucking babies on TV started showing up looking all crazy with missing limbs, right? Some of us have been noticing well before you guys started watching shit on TikTok, all right? A lot of us were noticing when noticing was dangerous in and of itself. When simply telling people that you noticed something weird was likely to get you fired, shoved out of polite society, have your friends look at you kind of funny, have your relatives look at you kind of weird. When you noticed back then, you paid a price for it. But now you get to be Charlie Kirk and notice for a little while. And who knows what happened with that? Charlie Kirk started noticing just before he died, and that's really, really strange. But a lot of us have been noticing for a long time. And when you notice, they don't let you grow. When you notice and people notice you noticing, well, they just got to put a stop to that shit.
But that's what it is to be a Christian. That's what it was like to be the first Christians, to watch God himself nailed to a cross.
Speaking of the first Christians, if you really want to go there, Jesus Christ was the first noticer, bro. Nobody noticed anything like Jesus Christ himself. An entire religion built on noticing, right? Way back when they put him on the cross because he noticed too hard. He was like, no, none of this shit is what my father told me it was supposed to be, and I'm gonna need y'all to stop. And they were like, wait a minute. Somebody started noticing. And for 2,000 years, it has been war against people who notice too much. If you really want to go there, if you really think you know shit, that is the real nature of it all. A religion born of people noticing. It was a revolution of the original noticers. You will follow me and you will notice how awful this is. And you will proclaim my name as a noticer. That is what happened. That is what that religion is based on. That's what this shit's really about. 2,000 years. The first noticer never stopped noticing ever since then.
For the sake of everyone. You cannot tell me you have faith in God if you don't have faith that all of those people that seek to hurt us will ultimately meet their divinely appointed justice at God's hands, but not our own. Those lives are not ours to take.
Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. And I really appreciate Nick Fuentes taking a very measured, a very Christian approach to it, because I'm not necessarily as good at this Christian stuff as other people. You catch me on a good day and I'm like, shoot them all, God damn it. Shoot them all. We'll talk about it in the morning. You know, you catch me on a good day. I am not the best Christian. I don't have the Christian morality nailed down as hard as I might like. So, you don't want me to be in charge. I just might wipe a few things out because, they had it coming, God damn it. So put that in somebody else's hands. And I'm thankful to somebody like Nick for actually having that clear-headedness to approach things without calling for any overblown acts or any kind of aggressive behaviors. He actually called for a solemn Christian attitude, and he called people to do the long work. And that's really the hard job. There were moments in my life where I realized, like, I could crash out. I could ruin everybody's lives, right? I could fuck us all for good, and I might even feel justified and deserved in that action. But the real victory has to come from the long play. And so I can appreciate him, even in his youth, because I'm way older than him now. And I can appreciate that somebody making that move. It's hard to give that call. There have been times where I had to make the hard call and stop other people from going too far because it wouldn't be good for anybody in the long run. Because the long run is where we all wind up eventually. You live long enough, you make it into the long run, and now you're here suffering. And so sometimes you have to think about that. But shout out to Nick for making it into the New York Times, though. Things really are changing. Who could imagine this like 5 years ago?
I want to talk a little bit about my New York Times profile. Pretty sick, right? Not going to lie, pretty sick. The picture, auraful photo. I appreciate the author of the piece. My guy, dude, aura farming. We have to give credit to the GOAT. Credit to the GOAT, Robert Draper. I should not say this because then they're going to write nasty. If I say he did a good job, then the next time they do a piece, they're going to say, whiny Nazi bitch, Nick Fuentes. Whiny Nazi incel loser, Nick Fuentes. But it was a great piece. I thought it was fair. Honestly, I thought it was fair. It wasn't a puff piece by any stretch. I mean, they're calling me a problem, a mosquito. Okay, what the fuck? Calling me a mosquito and my lifeblood is attention and a carnival barker. And, so there were some jabs in there like, all right, Robert, you made your point. He got some shots in, but it was balanced, and for full disclosure, the journalist reached out to me a few weeks ago and said, hey, I'm doing this piece about your generational run. He didn't say that, but that's what we're all talking about. And I said, yeah, what the heck? So I called him and he interviewed me. And it was fair. I mean, much of what I said was.
It really is a generational run, though. And one of the things I've been looking at for the last couple of years is that the left wing, either socially or politically, they don't really have any big hitters anymore. Their most powerful voice on the left wing is literally Ocasio-Cortez, man. AOC. And she's not a bad looking lady, right? But not a lot of real substance there. She's one of those people who has physical attraction and emotional pull, which is really how the left has been working its magic for the longest time anyway. A combination of physical attraction and emotional pull, right? Hot bitches and victim stories. That's the left wing. Whereas on the right, we don't really rely as much on the hot bitches thing, although there are beautiful women on the right. But from an ideological reach perspective, it is more argumentation and impassioned delivery than it is just a victimization and somebody did something mean to me.
Faithfully reported in the piece, which is about as much as you can ask for. And I thought it was great. I mean, I think it could have been a little better. I'm still waiting on my profile. I just wish they could understand me, And for those that didn't read it, it's on the New York Times, and they talked all about how my following has grown so much in the past year and how I'm feuding with Trump and I have this thing with Vance, and they talked about all the things people have been talking about. I do want to talk.
And that's another thing too, especially as far as the right wing is concerned, he has been a critic of Trump even before the election. He was always sort of, and this is the benefit of going further right than the mainstream right, is that you keep your mainstream honest at the very least. And so when it came to Trump and a lot of his criticisms about his international movements with as far as Israel and bombing Iran and all that, you had guys like Nick Fuentes and the Groyper movement already seeing the telegraph signals saying that this was coming. And so when it finally happened, all they had to do is sit back and say, I told you so, which it only adds more credibility to an already credible source, right? And so now you have this guy who is able to make legitimate criticisms of MAGA, who literally dropped their MAGA association. I don't even think Nick fucks around with a MAGA hat or anything like that. And so now that people are officially not MAGA, and I've kind of fallen out of love with MAGA as well along the way. It's for reasons like this, right? And then you got a guy like this who's kind of seeing it's not all it's cracked up to be. Don't imagine that this is perfect.
Talk a little bit about.
Oh wait. There was another one we're gonna jump to right here.
Dude, what the fuck are you doing? Man, he got a fucking glaring profile on the New York Times. Shut the fuck up, okay? There's a reason why I didn't talk about Nick Fuentes for a very long time, because it was an irrelevant Nazi. He is now moving away from being an irrelevant Nazi to actually becoming a very relevant Nazi. Do you see this? A glowing profile. Sorry, not glaring. What are you talking about? It's the same reason why I addressed it the other day, because he's gaining a lot of prominence among dumb fuck people who are not Nazis themselves and don't realize that he also is a dumb fuck Nazi. Yes, but please, will you ever stop fighting with the pigs? Man, this country is run by fucking pigs. Shut the fuck up. This country is run by pigs. What are you supposed to do in that situation? Just hope they go away? By wish that they just fucking go away? What are we doing? As is the case with As is the case with like people like Sex Pestany, they just don't go away. There's a point that you have to like try and combat it.
How do you imagine you would combat this, huh? Maybe like with a 3-06 Mauser rifle? Do you suppose that would be an effective combat tool against Nick Fuentes, or in the words of right-wing podcasters? Maybe with like a really specialized scope or something so you can really, really get up close? How do you plan on combating such a thing? Because calling people racist anymore doesn't work. Calling people fascist doesn't work anymore. I honestly, compared to like watching ballerinas get devoured by tarantula monsters on a train in North Carolina, fascism looks pretty goddamn cool. All right. If you want to sprinkle just a tad bit of racism on there, I'm willing to hear you out. Tell me how this goes. But calling people bad names anymore just isn't going to do it for you.
What kind of society do we want to live in? It's a pressing question. Do we want to be too racist and safe, or not racist enough and not have a society? It's that simple. So people are going to have to get a little bit more comfortable with talking about this in racial terms, because that's why we can't solve it. And you want to know how we know that? Because if it was a white person stabbing a black girl, they would be lynching this guy. That's how you know. Because if it was a white person, a white football Chad stabbing an 18-year-old black kid in a hoodie with his Arizona iced tea and Skittles, they would fucking lynch him. If it was a white person pushing...
Oh yeah, yeah. Time happens fast, and we all forget about Carmelo Anthony and Austin Metcalf. That was another horrible moment of black people showing their just really horrible nature. And a lot of people are starting to notice this collective horrible nature, and it's hard to explain away.
black person in front of a subway train in New York, they would lynch him. That's how you know it's racial. Because if it was white people doing it as characterized and portrayed on television and in movies, we wouldn't have a problem. Because there would be narratives, there would be policies, it would be called the new KKK, and they would spy on every white person and decimate the criminals. But because they're black, and it's not politically correct, and it's sensitive, we can't chase them, can't charge them, can't lock them away. We can't even talk about it. They won't even cover it. And it's gone on for too long.
I think with the rise in popularity of figures like Nick Fuentes, the phenomena, this was totally unscripted. I could have never predicted a moment like black fatigue becoming this viral conversation that gets had all across the internet. And low key, black fatigue has long been a point of discussion on certain parts of the internet. Certain people have always been talking about black fatigue, like even the idea of the talk, as it were, this idea that black people have to have this conversation with their children about how dangerous the police are. As it turns out, more than one white person has gone viral for having their version of the talk, which is effectively a talk about the nature of black on white violence, the spontaneity and the aggressive randomness of it all.
If you're a Christian white parent who loves the Lord and loves your children, that you need to have the talk. The talk that we're referencing is the talk that takes your children according to their maturity at the proper time, the appropriate time, and says, there are certain parts of town that you cannot go. And there are certain people that you cannot be around.
Yep.
Right? If there's someone who is black in our church and they've been in our church and we know them and they love the Lord Jesus Christ, great. We're not talking about that person, but we're talking about when you go into a crowd of people. If you go into a crowd of strangers and they're white strangers, there's some danger. If they're black strangers, there is 30 times more danger.
"30 times more danger." 30 times. And you know the irony of that? Me as an adult black male in my mid 40s, I think that danger for me is maybe 25. I'll even take it down. I'll take it as far down as 15. But there's still far more danger in me approaching a group of random niggas versus or being approached by a group of random niggas versus like random white guys, right? The danger, it might be somewhat lower for me because of in-group preference, but even that danger isn't completely non-existent, and it's still far higher than safe. And so, the idea that black folk have to talk about police is kind of laughable when theoretically black folks should be having to talk about black folk the same way this white guy is talking about it.
Strangers, and they're white strangers, there's some danger. If they're black strangers, there is 30 times more danger. Them's the facts. And it is actually a failure of your parental duty. White parents, please hear me. If you teach your children growing up, if you lie to them and say, all people and all races of people in our country are the same, they are not. You are actually depriving your child of factual, truthful information that could save their life.
No, no. El Caban says blacks need a "I'm not one of them" hat so they can feel safe. No, it's going to be like a little gold star. That's what you're going to have to do, right? You're going to put a gold star on us. It's going to be weird, but sacrifices have to be made, right?
And too much insanity. Look at what's become of these. It's depressing. Look at what has happened to Chicago. Beautiful city. Ruined by this. Same with New York. Same with LA. LA is one of the most beautiful places in the world. Look at what they've done to it. Because we're afraid of being called racist. Well, I'm part of the new generation, and I can assure you, I don't give a fuck about being called racist. I want my fucking country back. If that makes me racist, so be it.
Oh, by God, we'll have our home again. By God, we'll have our home. By blood and sweat, we'll get there yet. By God, we'll have our home.
Take control. Take control of your city.
I've been talking about this for a long time. When I first started down this line of commentary on YouTube, it was purely out of just shock. And I guess I had to grow up a little bit during the George Floyd riots. Like, if any of you have been fans of mine for that long, you would know my very first ever video was done during the middle of the George Floyd riot. I didn't even have a laptop then. I just did something on my phone. I didn't even try to bother with graphics. I literally turned the camera on and then put the camera face down. So it was just a black screen of me talking. And I really couldn't believe how far gone the black conversation really was. It was no real sense of logic, no real grasp of, reality. people were just off the ground. People were just floating away from the ground. They were so far gone with reality. And then watching that play out in real time with people actually rioting and looting and people dying and the violence and the destruction of things and it spread. It was just all over from city to city. And you realize just how deep the gash is, how possibly unhealable the wound is. And I have no real proclamation for how far things could go, but I knew then that this is going to be answered for. In the grand scheme of things, this will not be left unanswered. And now it feels like we're at this moment of answering. And I can't say that I feel sad for it. I can't. There's a side of me. Honestly, a lot of me welcomes it. I'm thoroughly beyond the point of guilt and sympathy. I am beyond the black version of good and evil. The black concept of good and evil is purely narcissistic and egotistical, and my rationale has moved so beyond that I really don't think I care so much anymore.
About being called racist. I want my fucking country back. If that makes me racist, so be it. No love lost. And increasingly, that's how people feel about this. That's how I feel about it too.
And people are calling Charlie Kirk the white MLK. And the thing is, Charlie Kirk was never really a white advocate, right? Charlie Kirk was never really, pro-white in any significant way. He may have been sort of leaning around towards it later, but he was never like openly and specifically going in that direction when so many people that I've kind of covered over the years have been waving that flag and no other flag, right? But Charlie Kirk is not the guy. He is not the white MLK. If there is a white MLK out at this moment, you have to actually put Nick Fuentes in that running. This is white MLK face, bro. Uncut Underground. You gonna tell me this is not a great shot? Look, look, look. You know all those timeless photos of Martin Luther King in black and white and deep thought, like he's really trying to solve the Negro riddle and shit. This is the white MLK, bro. I'm telling you, he's been the guy. This could be what I should freeze frame this. Let me get rolling dancing ass out of the top right there. This is a great moment. This is a great shot of the white MLK thinking about the predicament of his people and his MLK voice. I had a dream. I had a dream that this was a white nation for the white man. I had a dream that we could stop crime. I had a dream that ballerinas from the Ukraine wouldn't get eaten alive by fucking tarantula monsters. All right. I had a goddamn dream. All right. This is the white MLK right here. You hit the wrong guy, bro. You hit the wrong guy. I'm telling you. That's why Nick doesn't come out of the house. He live streams from a bunker in Chicago. You have to fight through an army of niggas just to find his house accidentally. You're not going to hit him the way you hit Charlie. He might never make it into the sunlight ever again. You hit the wrong guy.
So that's the issue. What's amazing is, of course, Trump is surging the National Guard in these cities to take care of the problem, and you're having protests against it. They want the chaos. They want the disorder. It has to be broken. These people have to be broken. It cannot go on like this. There needs to be leadership. It needs to come from the top. The people may not like it at first, but they need to accept it. Because otherwise, we don't have a country. It's that simple.
I had a dream that we took our country back from these gay communists, from these violent tarantula niggas, and these angry bitches. I had a dream that we made America great again. All right, that is the new Nicholas King. All right, Nicholas King had a dream that America would be great again, and the white people would repopulate the land. That millions of Latin immigrants would be removed from this country every year for the next 5 years. Nicholas King has a dream, y'all, that the American military will actually be used to defend American interests at home and abroad. Nicholas King has a dream, all right, that white people will join together as brother and sister across this great nation in an act of solidarity, much like the black man. Nicholas King has a dream, goddammit. You hit the wrong guy. You hit the wrong fucking guy. I'm telling you, if you wanted to hit the if you wanted to hit the white MLK, it was not Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk was a guy who loved church and he loved his family and he loved Israel and he was trying to make right wing politics work. And Nicholas King ain't got none of that shit going for him. Nicholas King is focused on one thing, all right? I want white people to make America great again. That nigga is singularly focused on one thing and one thing alone. And you didn't hit him. That's the damn problem. You didn't hit him. And now, like I said, he might never ever come outside in the sunlight ever again. He's gonna order Uber Eats. He's gonna hire a Latin guy to eat all of his food. He's gonna hire a Mexican food tester. He is never gonna come out ever again. It's too late now. You're gonna have to like drop a bomb on his whole neighborhood. You're gonna have to hit him with a bunker buster. The US government is the only thing that's gonna kill him easily now. And even that wouldn't stop it because the cat's out of the bag at this point. The cat's out of the bag. You got guys like Nick who can make great argumentation for his particular cause and his particular group of people. But here's the thing, right? Because I'm a black guy. Let's say the black Fuentes is out there. Because in the Fuentes multiverse, there is a black Fuentes, right? And here's the thing. I see no positive association. Me being a black heterosexual male, a father of three, there's no good reason for me to associate with the Democrats or frankly, at this point, anything that has to do with left wing culture whatsoever. And as much as, the women, shout out to a PhD, but, that's still my bitch over there. As much as women like PhD would try to warn me against association with the alleged racist white people, I would rather take my chances in racist land than deal with you niggas indefinitely. I would rather find my way than have to be told that this is all I could ever hope for. Because it feels like that is kind of the trick in and of itself, right? Is to convince me that there is nothing greater. Like I'm gonna end with this, right? Like I was just over on Sharon's channel, right? There's some girl, because you know how Sharon loves having all these girls asking stupid questions. Some girl up there was asking a question about how can black people no, some guy asked a question about how can black people improve our image to the rest of the world, right? And then some girl basically said, there's nothing we can do. We don't have to do anything. It's on them to just see us better, right? Which is to say that, we have no problems worth working on. And the thing is, we don't have to be better for the sake of white people or Nick Fuentes or any of that, right? It's not even about how other people see you. Good to know you're a fan of the show, bro. Hope you learned something. Hope you got educated about how the world feels outside of your own particular view. But thank you for listening. Hit the like button on your way out because we wrapping this up in a minute. Actually, you know what? I might drop the link because I'm actually not tired just yet. I'm not sleepy yet. We could drop the link if you like. But that girl said there's nothing black folk can improve on, which is hilarious to me because I think she was making that comment in defense of like black folks' image in the face of everyone else. But I think the reality of it is that I think black folk in general don't understand where we stand in the nature of like the forefront of Western civilization. Like, as it were, we are a net negative. When it comes to like America and America maintaining its global dominance and maintaining its, position and whatnot, we have become, we maybe not always were, but certainly have become a net negative. And I don't think that's a comfortable conversation that a lot of people want to have. A lot of the blackish people like to imagine Black America as something other than what reality would dictate. Nigma, you're gonna have to kill all that background noise. Yeah. Just pipe that down for a second. But yeah, when it comes to and I'm not even talking about like global blackness and all that, because quite literally, fuck them other niggas. Black Americans are the only black people in the world that are literally born into a first world country and what would become the leader of the free world, right? So we got blood and soil claim to the first world nation. And I don't think we appreciate the specialness of our position. And not only the specialness of it, but our shrinking hold on it. SKC, I asked a question earlier when I was over at Sharon's channel, and the question was basically like, when you say blackness, like, what do you mean? What is blackness? What is it to be black? And I basically got, rap music and collard greens and shit like that. Now, Uncut Underground, that's a ready-made answer as far as I'm concerned. I would have no real qualm with that. That's my answer to it. Black is to be Black American is to be of America. We are American. All that shit you're talking about as quote blackness, what it really is American culture. Black folk may have latched on certain elements of it, whatever, but we are fucking American. Black is American. And I don't think that a lot of black folk that I, especially these niggas in the chitlin circuit that I have these conversations with, a lot of them don't really appreciate that side of it. They like to imagine black as some kind of other outside of the American norm. No, to be black is to be American. Like these other niggas from around the world, they're fucking like very particular. They're Gambian, they're Ghanaian, they're Nigerian, they're South African, they're Namibian. They're basically like some kind of weird exotical black and shit. We are Americans. You're basically primitive as far as I'm concerned. I really don't look at you like I look at us, right? And so this idea that, I should feel some affinity to global blackness when I have a ready-made American identity that's just sitting here waiting for me to make the best of it. Like, nah, fuck, I look like being one of those niggas. But anyway, Nigma, you got your audio straightened out tonight? Because you was kind of disruptive a second ago. I couldn't really talk to you with all that background.
My bad. Yeah, I should be good now that I don't have
Yeah.
mute everything in the background. But about what you were saying, I was listening to an interview with a gentleman earlier, a guy who was approaching his 50s, and he was talking about he understood that when it comes to the transatlantic slave trade, that it took a large participation from Africans in order for the slave trade to happen, right? And that's when it dawned on me that us black Americans here, we're African rejects, right? Because they kidnapped, because we were the enemy tribes, whatever, and we were sent over here. So we're actually the rejects of Africa. And then to sit here knowing that fact, come back and say, he came back and said, well, we all need to unify. It's like, no, that's not going to happen when we were rejected from the continent. At the very least, we have our own identity here in America, and this whole rejection of accepting that we're here in America, it just seems crazy. It's not that let's say, okay, fine, you don't want to accept the white American dream. Like, I understand that, but why not have your own though, right? Why not take the bits and pieces that are positive? We have the data now. We have all kind of documentation. I mean, you could make the excuse that niggas don't read, but we can take all the data that's out there and make our own identity here in America and make it something positive and productive. And the only thing that I showed that's the problem is it takes work. It takes the non-sexy shit like responsibility, accountability, and work and labor, and what I like to call productive suffering in order to make it happen.
That's why I like the commentaries from Nick Fuentes earlier about, don't go off on some kind of revengeful, some sort of vengeance crusade or whatever. Like, if you want to do something about what you just saw or what happened with Charlie Kirk, don't make the short play, make the long play, right? Get in there and do the work, bear the suffering, do the things that you never considered doing, but the things that will pay off in the long run. And as somebody who's a little bit older now and maybe I've made the mistakes that I see the value of that kind of thinking now, I can appreciate that because, like you said, there is a level of suffering that we have to bear in order to be greater than we once were. And that's kind of the play that should be made.
And I didn't like. Well, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. No, you got it.
And I don't like. One thing I have against Christians is they always want to propose this flowery view of Christianity, right? When really in the Bible itself is very moderate, right? So right after, like for instance, right after John 3:16, there's a passage that says that God made the heaven and the earth, good and evil, right? They don't want to talk about that part, even though it's right after one of the most popular verses in the Bible. Like, it's all there. It's all inclusive in the Bible. And to me, that makes him more of a powerful being because he has that balance. And also within the Bible, the Christians have been called to slit some throats and to spill some blood. There's even a part about where a prostitute was called to kill somebody. So it like posing Christianity is just, oh, we just suffer and that's it. No, bro, we like I'm not gonna say because I'm not that great of a Christian, but Christians have been called to do some to spill blood, to do some murder, to euthanize the human race. that's part of it as well.
Well, like I said, the religion itself was sort of born in a type of revolution, right? A rebellion, so to speak. So I get that, but I don't think a lot of people in the modern sense have a really a full understanding of the totality of the Christian history. Like most people don't really know how far it was. Like the idea of the Crusades and all that. The Crusades weren't a bunch of Christians who decided to go pick a fight with Muslims. They were really fighting a defensive battle. After losing like hundreds or maybe 1,000 years worth of battles, they finally started to win some shit.
True. And then you also had a Gideon Bible, and the Gideons were running around fucking up shit. They from what I understood, they will go to a city and circle around and have an oil and some in a jug and do all kind of stuff, and then things, and they just won the battle. It's not this peaceful thing that you just sit back and be passive, because that's how it's sold. You just turn the other cheek, all the time. Like, no, there's a time and place where you're being called to arms, where you're called to violently defend yourself or to be in the offensive, because King David was a warlord in the Bible. He was causing all kind of havoc and everything. I mean, that's just my only beef with my objective understanding of Christianity.
Well,
just sit here and just say we just take it on, we just take it as it. I think that's just a misrepresentation.
I'm gonna tell you why, and this is one of the things that I think is also unique, perhaps, to the Christian worldview, and why Christianity itself has, on the whole, been a very positive effect as opposed to a negative, right? On the whole, I'm not going to just say everything is all perfect, but what I would say is that the character of a Jesus Christ himself, who is, as far as their faith is concerned, was, bearing all suffering and committing no sin. And so, whereas other religious leaders may have literally killed their enemies and whatnot, and been warriors and shit like that, you have a figure who says that above all, the best thing for man to do is to love man and serve God. Well, love God and serve, love each other and love God or whatever, right? And so it creates a different kind of moral landscape. So, and we don't necessarily appreciate this, but our entire like Western worldview is very different from a lot of other places in the world because of that very simple Christian ethos that like we are all the children of God. So therefore, all of our lives have the equal intrinsic value. I don't know that that is an ethos that you get outside of Christianity, not all other religions, because like even for a non-Christian, this is why like the slavery thing comes up later on. As a non-Christian, it doesn't matter that you don't believe in Christ. You still are a child of God, right? That is a Christian ethos, and not every religion operates on that level. Like you either gang or you not. And so, once you're not gang, it doesn't even matter what I do to you. Whereas within the bounds of Christianity, it doesn't matter if you're inside this gang. Like I still have a rule and a morality that prevents me from treating you less than a child of God, right? That's a big part of like the abolitionist movement, and honestly, our current moral Western framework.
I hear that, but also part of Christianity, like Christ himself. There was a certain point in time where he had to like move furniture, literally. Like he went to a temple and flipped the table where they were collecting quote unquote tithes and collecting money because they were corrupt. And then also part of Christianity is, yeah, you're a child of God, but that doesn't exclude you from feeling the weight of your actions, right? Because then you have instances like Sodom and Gomorrah, right? Because of how bad they were, the city was destroyed as part of God's order and everything. You're still, even though you are a child of God, that doesn't excuse you from feeling the weight of your. It doesn't excuse you from justice, basically, and that's what kind of irks me about like going to the whole moderation thing, is that the thing about moderation is that, in my opinion, when you say moderation, I'm thinking of justice. So you and justice is basically, to me, is like the best concept in a wide society, because you earn your outcomes. So if you act a certain way, you do certain things, you're gonna have a certain outcome. And what people want to do is just skip the forefront of making that decision and just have the out. They want the freedom of outcomes, but not the freedom of opportunity to earn those outcomes. And that's where we having the huge I guess delineation of what's going on. The leftists, they want a certain outcome, but the thing is, though, they don't want to earn it. They don't want to do the work that it takes to get the outcomes that they desire. In order to have, this perfect society where everybody is, kumbaya and we all get along, you have to get rid of freedom of thought and freedom of, the individual. You have to remove the individual, and everybody has to be the same. And so by doing that, you can't have disagreement, you can't have discourse. And because they're not getting their way, they're taking it to the next level. That's how I see it with the whole moderation debate, is that the moderates that I see are still like Nick Fuentes said, even though his speech may be offensive, but in the end, he still is very soft with his moderation. He's not. Well, I just want to say, let me land the plane. He's not willing to let people suffer for what they have done, for their own decisions.
I want to jump in there because you brought up the issue of moderation, and I know I spoke at length about that earlier today and tonight as well. And I'd like to get Freeman's take on what do you think about what I was saying about the death of the moderate opinion, and what value is it to be a moderate anyway, especially now with Kurt being the mainstream moderate for the right wing, well, the online right wing, I suppose.
Well, it has no value. Right. The parallel I made to Kevin Samuels was that he was the moderate, right? He was the bulwark for Black love. He was the last one, right?
Damn, I never thought of it in those terms. It's like I opened up a whole new avenue of lexicon. Kevin Samuels was the moderate voice in the ministry. That's a great point.
Because when he died, right? The reaction to his death radicalized a lot of Black men, right? And now there is no advocate for the Black family. There isn't. I mean, since he passed, Black guys are the voices of Black men towards this whole communitas situation are all like bounce, right?
Yeah.
That's why SBM has grown. It's just like we're not doing it. So
yeah,
Charlie Kirk as the moderate is like, well, we're not doing it. Like I don't care to be moderate. I care to be offensive. Doubly so. I mean, are you upset about it? Good. Because I will become all the more offensive. No, you are wrong. My convictions are correct. Right. So I think you're going to get a lot more of that because people were bold, man. When I moved to Austin, man, people loved getting in political conversations. It was weird. Like, oh, you're Black and you're from California. Oh my God. And they would give some left-wing opinions out of the blue, like I'm sitting there talking to them about that. I'm eating pizza, man. Leave me alone. Right? They love that. Now
that energy, Friedman, that lack of sort of political or social moderation, I cannot deny it. It has served me well in terms of like this YouTube online realm. And honestly, even in having certain personal interactions when we talk about these sorts of things, delivering the ideas in the same manner that I deliver them here online, it seems to have a similar effect where like it may be shocking, but like, it's far more respectable than playing it safe.
Yeah. I mean, I've personally been moderate for a while. Something happened. I was at a family event and like someone said something political, right? And my cousin, like, the scene in a movie where someone jumps in front of a bullet. It was like that. She was like, no, because she knew someone said something that would set me off. And, because I was a motherfucker, man. I used to just get in people's ass all the time. And so she did that. And I was like, all right, fine. I will ease up on you people. And, I was in a barbershop, my other cousin. And guy says something stupid about politics. And my cousin looked at me like, come on, man, please don't. Like, I got to come back here, right? I got to get my hair cut here. Please don't. But I ended up engaging in the conversation, but I did it in such a way that it was not contentious, right? So I've been non-contentious for a while. I don't feel like being non-contentious.
Let me speak to this for a second here, and shout out to Uncut Underground. I appreciate your commentary. He says when triggering people is the desired outcome, expect things to get worse. And I suppose that is a rational, logical take and a prediction of watching this art play out. However, what I've come to realize though is that honest debate and dialogue from the right wing side of things is fruitless, right? I think the left has dialogue for the sake of running the clock out. And so the idea, like, and I spoke to this point earlier where people have long described the right of politics, the right wing of politics, as basically the left wing driving at the speed limit. So like you observe all the traffic laws and you drive under the speed limit and all that shit, but you ultimately wind up at the same destination that the crazy radical left wingers go, right? And if you kind of look at that and see it to be true, then it kind of stops you and it raises the question itself. Well, what's the value of driving in this direction, going at the speed limit anyway? I'm going to go in the opposite direction, and I'm going to take a motorcycle and gun this bitch to like 125 at minimum. I'm flying because I realize how far left everything has gone and how like inescapable the conversation really has become.
Yeah. I think it's just over, right? The right has treated the left as if they were not rabid Marxist tools bent on destroying America, right? We just have different opinions. Let's talk about it. I don't think people want to talk about it.
Yeah, that's tomorrow's conversation, Freeman. Like, it's from the black perspective. I think it's hard to argue that we are the good guys at this point. Like, if when your entire position is a selfish want for destruction of America, when America itself is probably the best thing that could have ever happened to you as a black person, I don't know. It's like that meme. Are we the baddies?
Well, I mean, listen, the best diaspora group that exists, the most successful in the history of planet Earth, is Black people in America, period. That's despite a 70% bastardy rate, right? That is despite being at the bottom of the test score pool, right? Despite all of that, it is an unquestionable fact that Black people live better in America than anywhere. And it's by a mile. It's not even close, right? There isn't a UK version of John Hope Bryant, right? There isn't a UK version of Robert Smith. That just doesn't exist. Not even in all Black countries does that exist. Well, so when you point that out to the people who are like, but chattel slavery, they just get angry because they have no defense for it.
Well, in my opinion, it's akin to when I was watching I put in the comments the second Dark Knight movie. I'm just watching the Batman movie until they got to the end where Two-Face was down and Batman was sitting there saying basically somebody has to make the tough decisions, right? Because if it got out that Harvey Dent was Two-Face and was a criminal, all his cases would be put on out there and all the criminals would be released. Somebody has to sit there and really buck the system in a way that's unpleasant to the public. So you have, and like Trump, in my opinion, is as far as I've been alive and born in the mid 80s. I was born in the mid 80s. Trump has been that guy so far, the greatest example of that so far. You have to be willing, you have to negotiate like he does. Like he's willing to put suffering, he's willing to put on the table the suffering of America in order to make America better. And you have to be that kind of negotiator. You have to, like, for instance, they talk about increasing the poverty line to make it to where there's not such a gap between getting off welfare and actually having a livable lifestyle and everything. And no president is willing to make that adjustment because statistically speaking, they will make a whole bunch of people just hit poverty a lot more than what it is.
Trump is doing it right now.
And it has to be a long-term project as well. So it's not just an overnight thing.
Well, I'm saying like raising the poverty level. Like say right now the poverty level is making $20,000 or less. No president, but because of inflation throughout the year, since that number was established like 10, 20 years ago, because of inflation and everything that's going on, that number now should be like 35,000. No president wants to make that declaration that the new poverty level is $35,000.
Well, I mean, it's about okay. So what you see Trump doing now is kicking out the illegals, removing generational welfare, and making the money more sound. Right? You put all three of those together, that is going to be more beneficial to poor people than anything that's been done. Really, anything that's done since in America. I was going to say since the war on poverty, but the war on poverty was just a check for nothing, which destroyed people's souls. So, what people need are jobs, right? They need to be productive. Like poor people need to be productive, right? It is the benevolent. It is ruthless benevolence. So
right, I
that's
get what
I-
you're saying because he's tackling the other factors that make it in there. But the argument that a lot of people are simply making is you just need to raise the poverty level. Like what's considered what the poverty level is for income, like for household income. And he's not attacking that specifically, but he's attacking all the other factors. He's getting like you said, he's getting rid of the illegals. He's doing all these external things, but he's not raising the poverty level. And that's to some people that's the hard decision that nobody wants to make.
Yep. Jobs ain't coming back. Really? Who's going to build the data centers? Garden gnomes?
Well, you see
Other-
how they got
other immigrants?
They went to Georgia. They
What?
had the
Which
Hyundai
one?
plant
The
in
one that
Georgia.
just got shipped to Djibouti?
Well, didn't China just bring in 600,000 jobs? Like, or didn't that just happen?
600,000 jobs?
Yeah.
Jobs coming back are a matter of policy. It's not a matter of fate.
Exactly.
It's a matter of what is in the best interest of business owners, and business owners would rather pay for cheap labor than to pay for entitled Americans that really don't work that hard but want more money.
Maybe so, and I won't even fight you on that particular thing, and I disagree, but I'm going to let you have it. But here's the thing: that's why nationalism, in and of itself, needs to be the national spirit, not just raw capitalism, right? Because I'm not going to argue. I'm not going to argue against capitalism like I'm a communist or something like that. But I will say that unfettered capitalism only leads to power in the hands of capitalists, whereas the government should be governed by the people, And if you allow raw capital to just, do whatever it likes, then you have this thing where, capital will just flood the country with illegal immigrants, right? And so that's why
Uh-huh.
there needs to be a nationalist government more so than some kind of capitalist entity.
No, I agree. I can definitely see that. Absolutely. Um,
I mean, who's gonna build
I,
Skynet free zone?
in what
Black man.
way?
I mean, who's gonna build Skynet free zone?
You know
Someone's got to
what?
build
You know
Skynet.
what? That is one thing we should hire to shoddy Mexican labor. Let Mexicans build
That's what I'm
Skynet.
saying, bro. Like they gonna cheap labor that shit up out of here, bro. Like, because you just need like the cheap labor is gonna build the infrastructure, and then Americans will take it from there. But even then, like Skynet could be outsourced to. I mean, we got Indians going crazy in tech. You know what I mean? So it's like
In India?
what you mean in India?
You said they're going crazy in tech. I'm just going crazy in tech in
Yeah,
India.
I'd be more afraid of Chinese tech than Indian tech at this point. Like the Chinese may have some shit going wrong with them, but they're not stupid.
Well, you got
Right. In either way, that's
separate
covered
tech
in. You know what I
between
mean?
Indians got some shit going on. Just saying.
you got to
Yeah, but
separate tech between software and hardware. In software, yes, anybody can take over software anywhere in the globe as long as it's cheap, as long as you get the quality and it's cheap. But hardware, because it's physical, is location based.
Right. No, that's a fact. I wanted to touch on the moderation thing. I mean, in the middle of you need moderates in a world full of extremes, because even though extremes make the loud noise short term, it's the moderates that ultimately make the swing votes, make the bridge, make it more palatable to even transition from one extreme to the other. It's those moderates in the middle that are essential to that.
Yeah.
I agree with your theoretical logic. Like there's not. Well, let me say I do not disagree with the logic of your theory. All right, let me
Uh-huh.
state that unequivocally. Right. However, I would counter that with people watching Charlie Kirk's neck explode over and over again on a Twitter feed or an Instagram video and whatnot. That
Uh-huh.
is pushing that is pushing way more people away from the left than it is pushing people away from the right. And so I think your moderate position, as it may be going forward, is going to be way more right wing by nature. So the idea of moderate is going to change, even in your estimation of things.
But to be moderate, you have, like I said, you gotta let people feel the
Well,
weight
even
of the decision, right? Because like say for instance, when the tarantula monster did what he did, you got people coming in saying, "Oh, mental health, da 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 da," da. And then now you with the what I've seen so far with the Charlie Kirk situation, they're talking about all there's mental health involved in that as well. So that creates kind of a rhetorical barrier, from feeling the consequence. Like, nah, these are innocent people that were harmed, and the perpetrators need to be punished by the fullest extent of the law. Like, this is unacceptable.
Nigga, let me do something real quick.
the
Everybody listen,
tarantula
right, man?
monster is funny.
I've been saying that for days. That is a gulag term. We drop a lot of wisdom over here. We come up with a lot of phrasing over here. That is the tarantula monster for now and evermore. Let me ask the chat a question. Put a one in the chat if you watched that Ukrainian ballerina girl die on the train. Like, did you actually watch the full unedited video where he stabbed her 2 or 3 times in the neck and chest, and she curled up and put her knees under her chest, and then she slowly slumped away and fell into that little. You know how when you're sitting on a train, there's that little space between chairs, She kind of fell
Mm-hmm.
and disappeared for a second. Did you watch it? Did you actually watch her die? I watched. I watched the ballerina stop dancing, and
I just
you.
watched it yesterday. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna say I was unfazed by it. I've watched people die and I've watched the gore. I remember years ago there was like a website called like furt.com, I think, and it was very gory. It was just people, it was images of like bloody homicides and people dying and all horrible. So all I'm saying is I've seen that type of shit, so I'm not like physically ill from watching it, but I will not say that it was not emotionally shocking, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
also on top of watching her die in that way, knowing that Charlie Kirk's children were there present for him to get shot in the neck, and so they watched something similar as well. I I think the moderate position has shifted a lot further right than you would argue moderation would amount to.
Can I also ask another question? Didn't the tarantula? I looked at the tarantula monster, right, and they're reporting that he was homeless, but wasn't his dreads awfully clean though for a homeless person? Or is it just
I
me?
mean, I wasn't watching that closely.
I wasn't either. I just noticed because usually when somebody has dirty dreads, you can notice that right away. It kind of hits at you right away for a description or something. Like how would you describe the guy? Well, he had dirty dreads for sure. He ain't been retwisting in a minute.
I am not getting close enough to see if they're dirty or not.
I mean, even with the steel, I haven't
That's a
seen the
great
video.
look.
I only seen the steel that Hood Servitor has presented. And I was doing my regular walk today, and I was just thinking, like, that dude's dreads was pretty clean, though.
Nah, I never really noticed that, but that's a great observation. He wasn't necessarily sleeping outdoors every night for him to look that way. Because I know what outdoor people look like, and he looked a little bit fresh, like he had that day one of homelessness look. Like he hasn't really adjusted to sleeping in the rough yet, you know?
Yeah,
I mean,
and then, like, just by a huge guess, niggas don't know how to retwist their own dreads. Really, they don't really do that themselves, right? So he had to have. So I'm thinking he had to have help to retwist his dreads to keep it that clean from some source. But yet they're reporting that he's homeless. I just find that dubious.
Well,
Well,
I
I mean,
mean,
you think he was like
Freeman.
paying rent? You know what I mean? Homeless can mean a
No,
lot of things. Homeless means you don't have an address where you receive mail. You are
And
homeless.
right.
He could easily been living in a shelter.
And I say all that to say, well, he's a man, so there's not a lot of homeless shelters for men. So, but I say all that to say there's a certain demographic that seems to be homosexuals that are susceptible to homosexuals.
I
You
mean,
know what I'm
you
saying?
know what? He definitely has some kind of help. Like, it's not that he was completely isolated from the entire world. So, like, I played a video yesterday where it was an audio recording. It was his sister, I believe. So, from jail, he had somebody to talk to from the outside world, which technically is like, not everybody has somebody to call. Like, a lot of people get locked up and have nobody, right? And so, even that kind of signifies that he was not completely detached from every element of the world, right? He still had people that he could talk to and get things from.
Yeah, and even when you talk about homeless, especially nowadays, like there's a whole. Of course, you have the completely down and out, just dirty, dusty, bummy, fucking homeless people, but you also have the homeless people that they'll go to the gym and shower once a day. Like there's a whole system. You know what I'm saying? That some homeless people have. It doesn't automatically mean that you just out bad necessarily. Like there's whole YouTube channels of people who have no home and they've just figured out a way to finesse.
Yo, you know
But
what's funny? I was thinking about that. Like, I was looking at somebody the other day and he was outside, like, asking for some shit. And I started thinking, like, yo, what if I was homeless? Like, what if some shit happened and I just was so fucked up in the game, I had to, like, start from absolute zero? Like, I've never been completely at absolute zero. Like I've always had something that I could use to build on, right? And like I was
Yeah.
telling the story the other day, like shit, all I had was a food stamp card, and I bought some weed, and I never looked back. I just was hustling weed until I made it into greater things in life and shit. But like nowadays, I'm looking at the way it is, and like I wouldn't even try to hustle. No, I wouldn't even try to sell no weed because that shit you can buy weed from a corner store now, and if you're in the right place. But
Hmm.
starting up a live stream and then like being like the homeless live stream guy, I promise you that's a money maker. But and see, like part of it is charisma and like you got to know how to film content, shit that might be interesting to people. But like
Hmm.
I just imagine like me knowing me, I would find a way to live stream being homeless and make some money off that shit. I swear to God, I would capitalize on even that. But
Hey,
that's
look,
the other
hey,
thing.
I had a
yeah, yeah.
conversation with my
That's
coworkers
why
about
that's
that.
why I
Like,
don't give niggas no money. That's exactly why I don't give homeless people money because I'm like, nigga, you ain't trying hard enough, man. Especially nowadays.
like I had this conversation with one of my coworkers at a previous job. We talked about like what would happen if if you were going through a divorce, like your wife just kicked you out and you had to leave the premises. Like, what would you do? And we came up with a whole plan. Like you said, you get a gym membership so you can have a place to shower, and then I forgot like what would you do for your shelter? You have like your car and all that, whatever. But you'll be at least be able to. So that would be your shelter and your hygiene covered right there, and still go to work and figure out a way on the way, like build a plane while you're flying it, whatever. But that would take somebody who is reasonable at least, right, to figure that out. To kind of like do the math and everything of their situation. And so that will mean that he wouldn't technically be mentally ill because he's able to figure that out. You know what I'm saying? Like have some sort of sense, reasonable sense about themselves. But I don't know.
Nah, this is like what I was talking about with Jay Prince the other day. Like he has a very marketable sort of draw. Like whatever negatives you might want to say about like a Jay Prince as an individual, and I wouldn't even argue against you necessarily, but at the same time, when it comes to this YouTube shit and like attracting an audience and being a sort of spectacle that people take interest in, he has a great thing, but I don't think he understands like the ways he should or could capitalize on it. And so that's why I was just thinking about like shit. I would do so many things now. I would because of the fact that you can record things now and just it's like ready-made content if you have an eye or sort of creative vision for certain shit. Like he had a moment of like weird glory when he tried to do that store scam where he like I don't know, it was some water drip somewhere in the store. Like it was the end of one of my streams and Snowman came up talking about that shit. He said he got caught the last minute. He like sort of screen capped it and he played it on the show. And the nigga tried to like run a scam where he fell on the floor trying to like do an insurance scam, I guess, basically. Like, oh, I fell and hurt myself. And he really, like, fake fell and the whole shit. But it was so fucked up that you could tell the nigga was so, like, it was such a fake fall. Even me watching it on cam, like, it was so fake. But it was funny as hell. And I'm like, see, this is, like, so much gold. You gotta mute up because I can hear myself in your background. Somebody gotta mute up. But
Oh, my bad.
what I was watching, it was like just so much gold content that it was like, bro, like you actually are great, a great content creator on a certain level. But I don't think you realize how to capitalize off of you, and that's what makes it kind of weird.
Brilliant.
That
Chimp.
better? You still hear echo?
That is
No,
better.
no, you fixed it. You fixed it.
Okay,
Yeah,
back.
but that's the problem with being astute enough to notice your blind spot, that you're able to attract the audience, but you don't know how to monetize it. I mean, if you say so that old boy can draw audience, but I don't see he don't seem to draw audience that will pay, right? Like he don't have a stance that's worthy of putting money towards. You know what I'm saying? Like with you, with like with you, you have a message that kind of gives a perspective that people want to see, right? Like you grow this organically, and you can see the results with the super chats that you get from your channel. But I mean, you went over his platform and got $200 raised. Like, could he do that on his own?
No. And even if he could, he don't know how to maximize the profit from that.
Yeah, I think
Because
he has the
he has no
potential.
He can't succeed, man.
I
There's no
think, yeah, that's the thing.
he's about as good as making money as a bum is doing bum fights. So
I
you
think
could
he needs management. This is when I noticed JP years ago. Is when he was still he had some kind of association with Anton. This is like coming off the
bad
whole Fight
management.
Club era. Right, but he couldn't really like live under management, and I think that's his fatal flaw. Some people need guidance. Like there are things in life that I would totally accept guidance for because I understand the value of being a student as well as a teacher. Right? Not every You can't always be a master of every situation, and it takes a bit of self knowledge and self wisdom to understand that. Like sometimes I have to quiet myself so I can learn what I need to learn.
It's
And
a
that's the
level,
thing. I saw that as a flaw. Like maybe he needs management.
it's a level of
What
sentience he cannot achieve. Do you
what you
understand?
just said was he
That
lacks
might be
discipline.
true. That might be true. That's so true though. He does like discipline. That is actually like when I was thinking about him, that's one of my main critiques is like you really do, and that's not just a critique of him. That was a critique of myself at one point in terms of like this live streaming thing. Like you do have to apply a certain level of discipline to yourself if you want to achieve certain goals. And so I do think that to speak to Freedman Journal, like I do think that requires a level of self discipline that not everybody can achieve. Like the idea that I do need to be a good student is a hard thing to sometimes accept.
No, sentience, right?
Sentience, yeah, sentience.
The capacity to reason, right? The capacity to reason to say, oh, to do this thing will be good in the long term. This is not
yeah.
there. It is not there. Eventually, he just goes trunk monkey, and that's it. It's over. That's why Anton cut him loose. He couldn't do it.
But the thing is, and I kind of want to tie this back to like the broader conversation. Like, and JP is he's a spectacle for a smaller audience. But like when we're talking about like what attracts people to the left versus the right, I do think that people are everybody likes to laugh and have a good time. But one of the things that I learned, not learned, one of the things that I sort of tried, I guess is sort of an avenue I try to take when I do this kind of content. Like as much as we talk about serious things or political things, I try to bring a level of levity to it. I make jokes and sometimes I might even go too far or whatever, but I think there has to be a certain like casualness of approaching certain subjects. And then casualness is a great place to have some comedy and humor. But you have to be able to have a good time and then also talk about things that matter. And what I see happening on the left wing as opposed to the right wing, there are people who are totally capable of drawing in a crowd and at times having a very deep, layered conversation about whatever, but they don't necessarily lose the levity of things at times, right? Where it's like on the left wing, it's always very dramatic, very overblown. It's like emotionally heavy for no reason at times, and
Mm-hmm.
it's almost like to be a part of the left is to somehow tie yourself to some level of inescapable guilt. And I think that reality is pushing people away from the left. Like the Charlie Kirk thing is a great example. there's a level of inescapable guilt that is forcing people away from left wing association now because now you have to own that. That's who you are now. And especially because people are celebrating and grandstanding on it. And so, whereas the right wing doesn't offer you inescapable guilt, at the very least, it offers you religious salvation because Christ forgives. And whatever you were doing before, you may be at least able to beg forgiveness.
Yeah.
I think it goes back to the. Well, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say like I said, pendulums don't stop in the middle, and that for people who are coming into politics under the age of 30, they are going to be all the way to the other side of the pendulum, right? So when the pendulum swings all the way to the left, right, it's coming back, but the left doesn't like it, right? Because they've had unfettered wins for like forever, right?
Decades.
The entire basically post World War II era were left wing wins, right? They didn't really lose one until Roe v. Wade was overturned, but now they've kept losing. So now that pendulum for people under 30, and you're going to be real surprised how many black men especially under 30 were Charlie Kirk fans. I mean, you're going to see that pendulum in the coming generation swing all the way to the other side. That's what I had to say.
I think it goes to the fact that all decisions are made emotionally, and what the left does, it bases on making people feel good about adopting their ideology. Whereas when you go to moderation, it's too objective, right? Like it's like what Uncle Dave used to say, he would disagree with a Klan member, but he would defend his right to express himself. And even though it doesn't feel good, you have to be principled enough to just do what's objectively just stand on a principle. And that's the biggest thing about it, is that how do you make somebody feel good about your rhetoric, about your ideology, about your principles and your values? How you make that connection to give them that dopamine hit to adopt your foundations.
I mean, that's pretty easy. The way that you do that is give them I don't want to say a reprieve, but you validate their position a little bit while still inserting yours. And I was going to say this about you, Hood. Even with your extremes, there are times where even with your extremeness, if we're talking about the window, right, the pendulum, you do have moments of moderation that offset your extreme. Even though you're still, the overall goal is to be extreme, you handle it through times of extreme and times of moderation. And that's what can bring somebody from, at least understand your extreme position through your times of being moderate. And I think that's where the usefulness is. It's like a tool that you take out. You know what I'm saying?
I want to say this. All right, two things. We're gonna wrap this up, and I got a plan to kind of wind this last part of the conversation down. But let me respond directly to what you just said, Free Phone, and thank you for that. I will say this in terms of whether or not I vacillate between extremes and moderates. Maybe, and it is what it is, and I'm not gonna fight you at all on what you just said. What I would like to add to that is, as far as what I do say on this panel, and because I do open up the panel and I have this like open dialogue, and whoever takes the link, I'm willing to have conversations with almost anybody, and unless you do something that dangers the show. Like I brought that one guy up, educated Pookie, and he started tweaking out and saying all this nigga. He was going ahead, like stuff like that. Obviously, we can't have, but dialogue and discussion, like the actual Charlie Kirk and really it was Steven Crowder who started to change my mind style of debate. I'm always willing to have change my mind style of debate. So to that, spirit. I always welcome my audience and anybody who wants to take the link to attempt to prove me wrong and attempt to hold me accountable. As much as you can make a logical argument around it, and I accept that because if you can catch me out of bounds, if you can prove to me that I maybe went too far and did too much, I will likely accept, even if I fight you in the moment, if you can make a good case, I will think about it, and I'm willing to adjust my overall temperament if I can be presented with enough argument that maybe things should be seen a different way. And so this is
Hmm.
why I don't necessarily want to encourage anything like an echo chamber. I am who I am, but a part of who I am is willing to argue with you and let you prove yourself right, and let you prove myself wrong, and then
Right.
I'll accept being wrong.
Yeah, I mean, and even taking it outside of you, like how many times have you seen a panel where two niggas on the extreme are just going at it, going at it, going at it for like 30, 40 minutes. And then once the emotions subside and everybody calms down, what happens? Everybody returns to a medium where people start getting a little moderate. But that first 45 is usually extreme. You know what I mean? Because people are, they're either in their emotions or whatever, or they may have logic, but they put it out through emotion. And once all the emotions get sorted out, it's like, okay, I'm tired now. Like now we can have a somewhat moderate discussion, even if we completely disagree.
You know
I
what?
think it's the same mechanism.
So funny. While you were saying that, the first thing that popped into my mind, who I really like having disagreements with the most is SKC. Like the couple of times where we had a live stream where it was just him and I, and we argued about a thing for an hour or two. It was some
Hmm.
of the most like intellectually and personally engaging moments I remember because there are moments where we have mutual affinity for one another, but we were arguing from a completely disparate position. And I
Yeah.
think that brought out some of the best like arguments as far as my experience is concerned. And so I really enjoyed that element of it. Like I desperately would like to be proven wrong in some of the things that I desperately cling to. And if you can do that, I would enjoy the process of it all.
Yeah,
And when you're
absolutely.
proven wrong, when you've been proven wrong, how do you feel in that moment?
It's not a bad feeling. It's more of a revelation. It's a revelatory feeling. Like if you can walk me to a position that I had not previously accepted, I genuinely appreciate that. Even if I fight you along the way, I will accept it. I don't like to hold on to something that is intellectually incongruent for me. And if you can highlight the incongruency of it all, then I'm willing to accept. But I also acknowledge that I will fight you along the way. But I need you to fight back and prove to me because some things I want to fight over because if I believe something, it's because I've thought it through to a certain point. Now, if you thought your logic through to a greater point, let's hash it out.
Yeah. And I also think it depends on the setting, right? Between let's say hood, like between you and the SKC, there's moments where you can concede, right? Now contrast that with you on like Sharon's panel. If you concede on Sharon's panel, they are going to dog walk the shit out of you for the next 30, 40 minutes. And why give them that satisfaction?
Yeah, I
I
can only
the
concede trivial
the
points when I'm in a hostile environment like that. Like when I concede a point in an environment like that, it's literally like a chess gambit where I have to concede to let you eat yourself alive.
correct. And I noticed that like even the other day when they're having a discussion, right, on Sharon's, and they asked, I think Sharon asked True Hype a question about tariffs. And one of the funniest things is like a guy, the fact that True Hype said, they asked him a question and he said, I don't know. Now you would think that in an environment where people are looking for some type of authenticity, you should be able to say, hey, I'm not that experienced, I'm not that knowledgeable on this position, I don't know. But what happened? True Hype said, I don't know, and they made him seem like he was fucking up because he didn't know. It's like, no, don't say you don't know, stand on some shit. It's like, bro, I don't know. Like the most legitimate, the worst thing that you could say to a nigga apparently is I don't know. Because that's not just
standing on something. like I'm standing on the fact that
that's not
I
an
lack the
acceptable
knowledge.
answer. So you have to. They would rather you pretend that you don't know and make some shit up than to actually be authentic and say, "Hey, I truly don't know the answer to this question. I don't know."
They were frustrated because it wasn't the answer that they could react to. You understand?
Yeah.
He needed to say something other than "I don't know." He needed to say tariffs are great, and then they have a program response for that, right? They have a program response for tariffs are awesome, right? Whatever it said, right? They needed to goad him into giving them the response that they can react to. When he says "I don't know," they're just like,
Now, what do you mean you don't know? It's like,
say
like,
this
bro,
thing so that I
I
can react to this thing. I've been in that situation many times.
Yeah.
These are like
He
it's
pulled
a
the war games on without knowing.
Right? The NPC walks up to you, you're supposed to either say yes or say no. If you say I don't know, then what?
right,
What do you mean?
especially in areas of complex situations, it's complex questions and answers where a yes or a no isn't as clear as you would want it to be. You know what I mean? Like, uh, people try to make it seem like these are simple issues when a lot of these issues are very complex.
Yeah,
And
it's
so
like
in a scenario like that, it's okay. It's perfectly fine for you to say, hey, look, I don't know. I mean, there's good, like, I could see the argument on both sides, but I truthfully don't know.
well,
And
I would
You
have
know
said,
so
well, what is
funny?
good? Define good. What does good mean?
The other night, right? I got to cover this on its own one night because it was that night where like I was driving out of town, so I had a lot of time to really talk, and I was on Sharon's panel, and one lady came up, and she was like some kind of professional therapist or whatever, and so it was a night where like I had a lot of therapy that night apparently, and she asked me a question where it was like you said, it was a very complex question, but it sounds simple. So the question is, have you ever been in a successful relationship? And so my immediate response to that question is, what do you mean by a successful relationship?
mhm.
Because here's the thing, what is a successful relationship? Because my understanding is, well, unless you get married and then somebody eventually dies within the bounds of that marriage, I don't really know what a successful relationship outside of that actually means. And then through dialogue, eventually we got to a point where the therapist lady herself basically said it could mean whatever you want it to mean. So I was kind of right to be suspicious in the first place, but I brought that whole thing up to talk about the idea that sometimes people ask questions that it may sound simple on its face, but no, it is actually not simple because it doesn't mean what you think it means. The person asking the question can have a completely different frame of reference for what they're talking about. And when you hear
Mhm.
those words, you're not talking about the same things by the time you start answering the questions. So you have to be very careful how you approach these things.
Speaking
Yeah.
of that night, what's your body fat percentage?
Bro, I'm actually getting slim. I'm not even a fat. I was never fat, by the way, but I've lost weight. I think I got to get on the scale. I don't actually own a scale right now, but I think I'm under 220, which is great. I'm like 6'2", under 220.
Because that other dude just kept going personal. Like he wanted to sound intelligent, but at the same time he was making ad hominems about you at the same time, which was weird. You know,
Yeah.
to go at a person like that, that was crazy.
It was a strange night, but sometimes we all need some therapy. That was my therapy night, bro. I battled two therapists in a row. You know, what was that one lady name? I forget the lady name. Chanel or some shit like that. And then it was like E, the lawyer or some shit. E himself. That was I had to get on E. I'm like, nigga, I don't even know you. What the fuck you mean you want things from me? Who the fuck are you to want the greatness in me? That just sound gay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, bro, stop. Leave me alone, nigga.
He just
But
running
you know,
around. He's just running around
Oh,
seeing things in
that
niggas.
dude. Look, you should have said, well, how have you become great? How did your woman make you great? Right? Describe that to me. And why should I want that?
oh
Right?
man. Yeah.
That's
The
all
why
that
should I want that part? That people stumble with the why should I want that shit part.
Even better, why should I want your vision of greatness?
Yeah, I mean, my blood type isn't cholesterol. Why should I want to be you?
Bruh. Bruh. You know, I actually put a lot of that on private. No, you know what? That stream is up, but the after stream I put on membership only because I realized I was drinking a lot and I was calling that nigga all kind of F bombs and shit once I got I was going really head. I don't think he deserved all I started saying after I started drinking too much. But yeah, that nigga was getting on my fucking nerves. But we're gonna wrap this up. But like I said, I had a system, a theme I wanted to take on while we're wrapping this little conversation up. So I'm gonna read a couple of super chats. I want to get you guys' takes on some of these. I controls with the sideball. He said, "Incel Fuentes is at least standing 10 toes on never being a simp. He will never be compromised." I guess you're speaking to the nature of Nick Fuentes never having a woman. Allegedly, he's an adult male virgin. I don't necessarily think that's a great thing, but it's a thing. And so, being uncompromised by the endless Atashkata, as we started calling it. Shout out to Mystery Nick. Was that Mystery Nicholas for dropping that? But
Yes,
yeah,
it is.
yeah.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for that. Yeah,
Thank you.
not everyone is caught up in the endless cycle of eat, sleep, fight, bust. And so, what do you guys think to that idea that because he hasn't been compromised by the flesh, he is somewhat uncompromisable in some of his positions?
I just want to say, do you really think that Nick Fuentes doesn't have $200 to end the street?
It's not a matter of doesn't; it's a matter of desire.
I mean, but if he lacks the desire, then it's not involuntary.
Well, I'm not calling him an incel. I'm just saying that tongue in cheek. I don't necessarily even care about that kind of shit. But I think as it pertains to the question, does the fact that he's not really moved by the pleadings of the lamentations of women, as Conan would say, do you think that actually does that affect his position at all?
I I don't think so because you can't miss ice cream if you never had it. You can't be influenced by something that you never had, that you don't understand the dopamine hit that comes with partaking. So I think like it goes back to what I think somebody said that men need clarity more than they need therapy. And
Yeah.
name a man who's more clear than to avoid pre-nut delusion.
And you know what? I don't necessarily believe that therapy leads to clarity for men. This is why I'm sort of anti-therapy. Like, I'm not necessarily opposed to chicks having a friend to talk to, but I don't know that that process is as fruitful for men as people sell it to be.
Well, I will say this: if you ever go to couples therapy, right, make sure it's with a Christian, right, and a man, and then just stay 10 toes down, and you'll
I
come
don't,
home okay.
every time I hear couples therapy, I imagine a divorce court judge. I don't know why immediately I jump to that.
Just saying,
It's a personal feeling. I'm a person. It was a personal feeling of mine. Forgive me.
stand on your square and bro out with the therapist, and it's all good. Just trust me on this.
Yeah, I think men's conception of therapy is more action based as opposed to like constantly coming in every week mulling around the thoughts. I think most men have actual issues that are on some level able to be solved through practical action based means. And a lot of times, whatever therapy they may need may just be the process of working that out, as opposed to like these lofty emotional feelings. Um, you know, men got to work shit out, and they typically work shit out through a practical physical means. Um,
I think men are solution oriented. Like, not
yeah,
necessarily every problem in your life has a solution that you can grasp at the moment. But I don't
yeah,
think men can simply talk themselves into a better state. Like, you have to sort of come to a place of acceptance or something.
I mean,
yeah.
as a heterosexual man, what more information do you need than what it takes to silence your woman?
That's a lot of life problems, honestly, especially if you're like, in a relationship. But yeah, that is a huge amount of men's problems is like, I wish she would just be better.
Just make them better anyway. Being better is less painful than not being better.
I brought that up earlier. Like, it would be better for black people. It's not even about white. It was not to you guys. I was over on Sharon's channel. And they had that whole question of like, what can black people do to better our image as far as other people are concerned? And I'm like, it's not even necessarily about other people per se. Like, don't you think black people would be better off if we were better? Like, if we behave better and treat each other better, don't you think that'd be better for black folk? But anyway, that's neither here nor there. I want to
Wait,
move on to the next
what they
question.
say to that? Tell me what they say
They
to that.
they they quietly they politely ignored that whole position because it made too much sense.
Yeah, of course
They
they
don't
Oh,
like
did.
I
they
learned
don't
this.
like
I learned this from
For
being in
hood.
corporate America. You was making too much sense.
yeah, they don't like me over there that much. I go over there because sometimes I enjoy the moments, and every now and then it's worthy of live streaming on my own channel and doing what I do. But
They
it's never
cannot
a hostile, friendly, fruitful territory.
they cannot conceptualize being better for being better's sake. Did you read Nietzsche yet? Did you read Beyond Good and Evil Part 9 yet?
Not all the way, but I read some of it, and here's the thing. I'm told I was already on board with this idea of sort of appealing to a higher level of consciousness. Because like when I brought up the idea of blackness earlier, one of the responses I got was those of us that know what it means to be black don't have to talk about it. We don't have to ask the question, right? And what that really highlighted, and I said it right away, like what you're telling me is you've never actually considered your own identity. And so like when you brought up Nietzsche, I think he really did sort of explore the identity of what it is to be powerful and the idea of power in and of its sake and the will to power as it were. And so like when you bring up this sort of line of thinking about like who you are and why you do what you do, and then I look at like the black conversation about the nature of things, I realize there is a very shallow depth of exploring the nature of your own identity. It's a very shallow thing unto itself. People do not really get that deep into it.
Yeah,
I
they
think
do not.
I recently stumbled across Schrodinger, if I'm saying that correct.
Schrodinger.
Schrodinger, yeah, Schrodinger.
Yeah, and no, Schopenhauer, SCHOPEN,
Schopenhauer, I think is the
Schopenhauer. There we go.
yeah.
And he proposed that isolation is what actually brings about, self-discovery and self-evolution and everything. And I think one of the problems that we have as a black community that we're overly communal. Like we always gotta be in the mix. And that's what caused a lot of stunt. Because I didn't really get on my journey until I moved out and I was on my own and I had my own place. And I was kind of in my own I didn't realize that I was in my own solitude. And so that's where a lot
You
of the
know,
intellectual came in.
it's funny. It's funny you say that because you saying that I immediately identified with that notion because I know I've always been something like a loner, even within like when I had a bunch, like when I was back in Brooklyn and shit, and I knew everybody around the way. Like I always had people around that I could go hang with, or people that would come hang with me or whatever. But the the last couple of years, I've embarked on a sort of journey where, like, I left the city and I started my own business, and then I was driving and all. I was doing everything completely in isolation, right? Long story short, I went on a journey that involves a level of isolation that I had never experienced before. And so, doing that, living that isolation that you just brought up in the last couple of years of my life, I have been faced with a lot of time to just think. And it really is true what you just said. Like being away from a lot of the sort of petty distraction of the things I would have been previously caught up with, I've been able to think about things and go down sort of avenues of revelation that I probably would have never caught up with. Like the other day, like last like 2 weeks ago, my homeboy, me and my homie was talking, and he was like, "Yo, such and such got locked up," and he was telling me the details of it all. And I commented to him. I was like, it's so weird because it was like texting back and forth. Honestly, it wasn't like a voice conversation, but I was like, bro, this shit is it's like reading a newspaper. I know everybody involved, right? Because you're telling me about people that I actually know and I personally know for a long time. But at the same time, I'm now so far removed from it. You telling me about the shit is almost like me reading it in a newspaper. Like that's how far away from it all I feel at this point. Because I've been so isolated from that whole shit. I've been literally living and thinking and breathing on a whole other wavelength that it doesn't even mean as much as it would have meant to me 5 or 10 years ago.
Right.
No, that's a fact. Strength without reflection becomes tyranny. That's why you had, I know everybody's like sort of comics, so I can correlate this. I mean, Superman needed, even though Superman was powerful within his own, he needed his fortress of solitude because that's where he could step away from the noise of the world and actually think about how to best use his powers. You know what I mean? Like it's really a stoic principle that a man must retreat into himself to govern those passions before he can actually, govern others. You have to have it.
Let me move this on a little bit. Drag it, drag on the Passport King with the 4.99 super chat. Is Free Zone and Friedman related? I thought they were the same person for a long time. That's hilarious. I think all free niggas have a similar strike to them. It's something all free niggas seem to have in common, even if it's not visually. It's something about the spirit of freedom. But you guys can speak to that briefly if you like.
I actually agree. Me and Freeman are related in the sense that we are both free. Now, how we choose to exercise our freedoms are different, but we both believe in that concept of freedom being detached from the things that everybody else feels that they must respond to, like fucking sheep. Um, Freeman, you got it, man. Somebody said the freeze.
Hey man, it's a secret society. All you ask is trust, right?
Yeah,
I think
man.
Free Zone's in Tennessee. He ain't free, bro.
Nah, I'm free, bro. I'm not in Tennessee, but I'm free, man. I don't when they say that the world is going to label you as such, I don't you don't have to give in to those labels. You don't have to give into the box that the world puts you in. You can transcend those
And,
things.
and not only that, I think it's a choice whether or not you actually one become the label that people are talking about, and then two, I don't necessarily believe that the world labels you automatically before you get there. I think labels happen for the most part upon arrival.
Hmm.
And so it depends on how you show up in a lot of situations, right? Especially like when we're talking about this idea of, we're all black in America, and there's supposed to be this idea that simply being black is an inherent negative. Whereas in the overwhelming vast majority of my situations in life, I cannot say unequivocally that me being black was an overall negative. I'm not saying it was a net positive, but I'm not going to argue that me being black was somehow a net negative. I cannot like unequivocally speak to that. I have nothing to stand on that argument.
I think at the end of the day, you are who you are, and the to the degree that you're able to manipulate the outcome in your favor is to the degree that you are free. That speaks to the slave and master morality, where like a lot of people have slave morality, which stems from weakness, and they think that weakness gives them a sense of morality above others that can just do whatever the hell they want to do. I'd rather just do whatever the hell I want to do, and you can figure out your weakness on the way down while I'm going up. That's how I see it.
Friedman, are you back? Any thoughts to add to the free conversation, and especially free zone just brought up slave morality.
I mean, black people as a concept are not free, right? Because they're not
Mhm.
responsible, right? Corporately, black people are not responsible for anything, right? There isn't the reckoning of like South Memphis, right? That is not black people's fault, right? Jackson, Mississippi, not black people's fault. Flint, Michigan, not black people's fault, right? Nowhere where black people are corporately in power are the outcomes even acknowledged, or it's not like, hey, it's on us, we're gonna fix it. That attitude doesn't exist, right? They exist in
Mhm.
a world in which they are dependent upon an oppressor, right? They are dependent upon a power structure in which they are at the bottom. And I mean, like, what's that phrase? Water seeks its own level.
Right.
And I show you that all the time when I do my live streams with the maps. You can see it. You can
Yeah.
see it. It's like you can see a nice mixed middle class neighborhood, right? Where all the houses are of one price. Then there's the black side, which is biggity black, and that is that is somehow the white man's fault, right? And I think a lesson, honestly, that the right could learn is it's real simple, right? To this whole thing can be solved very simply. It's like, well, look, these black people over here are making it, right? Why aren't you like them? Right? And there are people who want to make it seem as if functional black people are some sort of an anomaly, but that just isn't true. Like
Mhm.
everywhere you go, that's not true. Right? You can go to Charlotte, you can go to Memphis, Tennessee. You can go to Hattiesburg, Mississippi, Mobile, Alabama. They're all built the same, right? There's a big black ghetto and there's a nice middle class mixed area everywhere. So it's not so the question is, well, why aren't these people like those people? What's the difference? right? And
That
then
is a
even
great question.
asking,
Yeah.
in even attempting to answer that question, right? You know what the answer isn't already,
Right.
right? It isn't racism. That's why it's a instant dodge, right? To that question when people say, well, you know, in the 1950s when, you know, racism was measurably worse, right? No one says that. Why were black people better? Right. And what the
Mm-hmm.
immediate dodge is, he's saying we to be in slavery. He said we better with oppression. No, they want to avoid the comparison. Right. And people play into that all the time. I don't know why. But they do. So, and then they lose the whole point. Right. It's why aren't you like this? What is the answer to that question? Right.
Yeah.
And the question is, it turns out that the answer isn't right. The answer undermines race politics of the post-World War II era. So
Let me come in, and we're going to wrap this up on this last question here. Well, this last point of conversation, rather. Every moderate in the world is now scared for their lives and now have no other option but far right. Shout out to Laughing Dog with the 5 ball. Thank you so much. And also, there was one other super chat beyond that. Hold on, where was that? Wait, shout out to Andre with the $2 super chat. Was that dude took him out a lefty? No, he was not a lefty. He was very much no, I'm sorry. Yes, he was very much a lefty. Excuse me. The dude that took him out, his family was very right wing, but apparently he went to college and got radicalized or whatever. And we might talk about that at another time at a later point. But Laughing Dog with that 5 ball, he said every moderate in the world is now scared for their lives and now have no other option but far right. Any last thoughts about this idea of the end of the moderate position?
If you are afraid of justice, then you're not a moderate. If you're afraid that consequences will not be enacted, then basically you're not a moderate. Because that's the position the left take, that the consequences that's a whole point of why that guy took that action against Charlie Kirk, because he felt like justice would not be served to Charlie Kirk for his rhetoric. He felt like he's not going to get his come up, and so he took it upon himself to enact his version of justice. So that's my take on it. If you're a moderate, I don't see how you can be a moderate and not believe in justice. You don't believe that people earn their consequences.
It kind of raises the very question of what is justice, right? And so, like those of us who are on the right in any kind of fashion, we more than likely have some type of Judeo Christian religious viewpoint, mostly Christian religious viewpoint. So we can maybe loosely start at a similar place with the idea of what is justice. But again, the very difference between left and right sort of hinges on questions like what is justice in the first place.
hey,
And
hit.
so,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, yeah, you had a question or something?
No, I was gonna say hit the last link I put in the private chat.
I think I did already.
Well, I can fill in. So the thing about the right is they believe in suffering, like Nick Fuentes said. They believe in like what Jordan Peterson said, like, yeah, the marriage laws are suck, but do it anyway. Like, accept that responsibility anyway. Yeah, America sees you as X, Y, and Z, but go ahead and suffer for the country anyway. Yeah, yeah, these are not your kids, but go ahead and take responsibility anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I think the left has done a great job of convincing people to take on a level of suffering that had never had any intention of benefiting them directly, which in and of itself kind of contravenes the idea of of embracing suffering, right? Like when I was talking about embracing the idea of suffering and every act of labor is sort of an act of suffering, it was never necessarily for the benefit of some vague other that may exist in the far off imaginary future or something like that. It was to benefit myself and my own position. Like I suffer now, so I suffer less in the future. And maybe if I suffer great enough now, I can reduce my level of suffering in the future to almost zero, right? And so that's the kind of argumentation I was laying out earlier, where it's like the left has convinced you that you should suffer indefinitely for the indefinite benefit of people who probably actually hate you in the grand scheme of things, right? And so that it's been a perversion of the very idea in and of itself.
Yeah, the left's suffering is mainly rooted in forcing and fighting to achieve equality of outcomes. Um, and it's probably a straw man to get that, it's probably a straw man, but at least that's the position that they hold, which we know in this world, there's no way that you can make outcomes equal for everybody, whereas the right accepts everybody ain't gonna be equal. And they fully take advantage of that reality. At least that's the way I see it. You know what I mean? Like, and I tend to lean more that I'm not fully to the right, but I do believe in the idea that you can't equalize outcomes. And to the degree that you try to force that, you're just gonna make it hell for everybody, because nobody's ever going to be happy with the fact that somebody in this world has more than them. So it's like a never ending fight for something that's just never going to actually happen.
And yeah, and this is why I think, as much as I like to say that I'm not like a Bible thumper, I always do acknowledge there is sort of a value in the draw to religion, because and I think the Christian argument, this is why I was laying out earlier, the Christian position on a lot of things is that you don't necessarily value money for money's sake anyway, so that you kind of circumvent that entire level of envy
Right.
or desire or whatever you might want to call it, right? Because there is a way to approach these ideas, because we are all human beings and we are all guilty of sins and whatnot, but we can kind of, a lot of us anyway, especially with logical argumentation, we can kind of be talked to and convinced of a better way to approach certain things that are just endemic to the human heart.
Right. Well, but okay, with the money thing, right? A lot of that is personal responsibility, because I ask people all the time that have those kind of arguments. Yo, like, in your lifetime, how much money do you think has actually flowed through your hands? And for most people, they say something to the tune of like $500,000, $250,000, some even $1 million. Some people have actually had $1 million flow through their hands in their lifetime. And the question is, okay, since that money has flowed through your hands, what have you done with it?
Right.
You see what
And
I'm saying?
that is how I actually mitigate my own feelings of envy and avarice or whatever. The idea that other people had more than me and I should feel something enough to go take from them and all that type of shit. Like I accept the fact that I have literally seen, I'm not going to put a number on it, but maybe more than I deserve, right? Let's put it that way. I have
Right.
literally seen maybe more dollars in my hands pass through than I perhaps deserve. And I didn't
Right.
necessarily do as much as I should have or could have done with it at that moment. And I live
Yeah.
with that. I live with that.
Mm-hmm.
I own that, and I accept that, and I don't necessarily let that be an anchor around my neck, but it is a wisdom that I go forward with.
Yeah. And that's why like, to a certain extent, like, especially in a lot of these conversations, right? I think the whole majority, and I'm going to be talking about this tomorrow with New. about the whole majority minority. You know how they use that in a lot of conversations. I think that is a huge gaslight, because you're not taking into consideration, okay, if the majority of people are losing and the minority of people are winning, and I'm not even talking about the elites, we can slide those to the side, just the minority of people who are winning. The question you have to ask yourself is that, okay, what are these minority of people doing to win that these other majority of people aren't? Because these minority of people aren't all people who are just born with a silver spoon. Some of these minority people have worked their way up to the position that they've had from having nothing. So the question becomes,
well,
okay, it's you know what I'm saying,
well,
like the question. Okay, go ahead.
let me cut you off real quick, because I think that the idea of winning, and I made this point earlier, the fact that you are an American citizen in 2025, you were already born in something like a winning position just by the fact of, the destiny of birth. But
Mm-hmm.
that being said, let's say you're an adult now. You're living, you're winning and losing is more in your hands than a lot of other people around the world, and especially in the grand history of time. Your winning and
Right.
losing is more in your hands than ever before. And so whether you feel as though you are a winner or a loser, one, never forget that you're already an American, so you were born into the winner's slot. And two, whether or not you feel as though you are winning or losing at this particular moment, it's completely in your hands.
Correct.
Right, which is go back to the other position that we were talking about, like being black in America, being net positive or not. It goes into what I believe you having a torque theory, and when I found out that torque is just a measurement of the ability to defy physics, which is basically reality. So you have to believe in yourself, like what is your torque in defying your reality, that you are poor, this is your circumstances, but I'm able to overcome the circumstances that's my environment, basically, or reality to a larger extent.
Yeah. Like a lot of it is personal responsibility, man. And a lot of people just want to give that up. Like when I first came into the space, I learned about Shelby Steele, and when he talked about a lot of people can't handle the responsibility of freedom, and I see it now, because I'm actually conflicted about like with the National Guard and all that stuff, right? I'm conflicted about it, because on the one hand, I don't trust government like that. So I know that there's probably some type of, just because I'm very untrusting of the government, I know that there's some ill intention on the other side of that. But on the other side of it, like I just said, you have a lot of people that just can't handle the responsibility that comes with freedom. So that gives way to something like the National Guard coming in. And I'm very conflicted about it, because I'm
I
not
think there's something else.
okay.
I think you are correct in that there's a responsibility of freedom, but I think within that responsibility of freedom, there's a layered nuance that I think goes unspoken to,
Mm-hmm.
which is within the responsibility of freedom, there is a level of acceptance, right? Meaning you being free and acknowledging your freedom. So, all right, first you must acknowledge that you are free, right? White supremacy is not the secret hand that has forced you to make all the decisions you've ever made in your life, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
you being free means that you are the owner of all of your decisions as a free person, for
Right.
better or worse. And that's the hard thing for people to accept. Everybody likes to accept freedom when it works out. Nobody wants to accept freedom when they fucked it up.
Right. Yeah. But when you've had decades of people literally giving their freedom to the government, what kind of situation does that set up? Pretty much what we have now. And what it creates is this weird kind of thing where people think that the solution to whatever their problem is to give the government more freedom. So they never ever actually have to make a decision on their own that gets themselves out of their situation. It's just somebody else's responsibility to fix it.
Right. It's slave morality.
Correct.
It is slave. And just like the other part of, I guess, red pill entertainment or red pill sayings or whatnot, it's like, well, when they change the laws, men will get married. Have you heard that before?
Absolutely.
I make the argument.
So here's my question is, who in the fuck is they? There is no they. They is you. There's no space aliens aren't going to come and change the laws, right? But in that statement, there's an assumption that they are not part of the they. That the they is outside of them and they are not in control of their own destiny, right?
Well,
Which is a big part of
go
MGTOW is a big part of MGTOW is I'm going to withdraw, right? I'm not going to advance and change my circumstances or change my environment. I'm going to withdraw from the environment, right? So in a Nietzschean worldview, those are the people with slave morality. They are
That
not
might
there.
actually be a great criticism of the MGTOW, which is that it wasn't really a call to action in and of itself. It was a call to fade away.
It's unmanly. It is not manly.
It's a call to inaction.
Perhaps. I see that. Yeah.
So, but anyway.
Which, I mean, there is a place for it, but I just don't think long term. Like, I know we say that the only winning move is not to play, but at some point
you have to play.
At some point, you know what I mean? Like,
but we've already got real world evidence that it doesn't work.
You play, but you don't play conspicuously, right? Like everybody knows about the term MGTOW monks, whatever, right? But I believe a better term is MGTOW ninjas because ninjas hide in plain sight. They're asocial. They don't bring attention to themselves, and that's what
MGTOW ninjas.
Right, because they're in plain sight because they talk about going to jobs and don't interact and everything. So they're in the mix, but they're just not. They're asocial. They're just not contributing there. They're not bringing attention to themselves. And by being in America and making American income, you're paying taxes, and so you're by extension feeding into the beast, and you just letting it run its course. But I've met guys who had other laws. Like for instance, I was working with a guy who was from Jordan, and in his laws, when you divorce a woman, you're only liable for $100 a month. And so you can't tell me that by that law that more guys will be willing to take on the risk of marrying a woman, knowing that the most they can lose on the other end is just $100 a month.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you lessen the financial burden,
and I get it, but it puts you in a quite of a situation. It's like, I know people reference the Matrix and all that stuff, but like my favorite quote from the Matrix is when Neo says the war was never meant to end anything. It was just another system of control. You know what I'm saying? So I see a lot of that stuff. Like you think you're mitigating and fighting against the system, but you're really just encapsulating yourself in another system of control within the system.
Maybe.
I mean,
I think the eventual reality is that we're all corporeal beings here. So to that extent, you may be right. Right, that's the reality of being a physical being living on this plane. Is always systems of control. So the ultimate salvation is something higher than your physical reality. But we still must strive to create a better reality while we're here. And so I guess that may be the ultimate responsibility. And even if we do it
Well,
in
the
small ways, I'm not calling on anybody to be a grand mover or anything like that, you know?
well, it's the same heart of okay. You remember when I remember when we used to hit panels, right? And we used to go crazy. And when they talk about racism, right? And we used to ask them this one question: how much racism could you live with? And it would throw everybody the fuck off because their mindset is that no amount of racism is ever should be tolerable, and it's like, yo, that's not really realistic. How
Yeah,
much racism could you actually live with?
like 1 to
And I
10.
so you know what I'm saying? So I move that over to control. If everything is just a system of control, what kind of system of control could you actually live with?
Right. That's kind of what
You
I was ending with right there. Like,
you see what I'm
let's not
saying?
get
So
too
yeah,
let's not get too disheartened by that sort of reality.
Yeah,
correct.
there's always control. I think there's a somewhat idealized and childlike conception of freedom in the United States currently, culturally, right? And it is off, right? We were never, you have freedom of speech, so you can, disagree and whatnot, right? But there's always been limits on speech, right? You can't yell fire in a crowded theater, right? You At the inception of the country, not everybody could vote. You had to be a male property owner, which I would love to go back to, by the way. Right? There are plenty of
Mm-hmm.
things you could not do. Right? So there was always controls. Right? It's a
Mm-hmm.
matter of um, continual iteration of the system to maximize, liberty and prosperity. So I think we've crossed the Rubicon to lowering liberty and prosperity, that we need a little more control, right? We need a government that will, break up monopolies again, because we don't have that government, right? We do not. We have a technocratic overlords in waiting type of techno future if we stay on this course, right? So, to your point, how much could you live with? I could definitely go back to the 1950s. Absolutely. Or even further, honestly. And that would be, the economy is more chaotic. Like now it's like, they have you'd have a recession like for 3 years. You know what I mean? Now you have a
Mm.
recession for 6 months and people are flipping out, right? But you had to be a lot more, but you had sound money. And if you just made money and saved it, you'll probably be fine. So, I could live with more
Gentlemen,
control.
Gentlemen, I think we're gonna, and I agree with you. I like to end on that note of agreement. I could definitely live with a little bit more control as well. This is why I've been kind of exploring, the far right and fascism and all that stuff that it entails. And I don't necessarily think it might be. I mean, everything run to its extreme is bad. Anything run to its extreme is bad. But I don't think, on the whole, the idea is as bad as these modern globalists think that. They've been telling us how awful it is, which I think is a ploy unto itself. But in the conclusion, I think I could definitely take a little more government control in the same spirit that Freeman's Journal was talking about. But that being said, we are wrapping this up. I would like to end this. I am all talked out. I think I've said all the things I care to say for tonight, and I don't care to talk about any other extra tangents of conversation. So we're gonna pick this back up later. I think tomorrow I might try one more show. I don't know. I don't. It's tomorrow's Saturday, so I can't really do much of anything else but talk. So we might do another show tomorrow afternoon before I go off to work. But yeah. I want to talk more about this black response to Charlie Kirk. We're going to take a second run at this because I don't think we're the good guys anymore, if we ever were, which is debatable. But shout out to you guys. Thank you so much to the panelists for joining the show. Thank you to everybody who was here tonight. Appreciate you tuning in. Like the video on your way out. Thank you, Freeman's Journal, for this last closing meme as we close the show down. We are at a time like no other. We are on a precipice, but I would caution everybody with the same advice Nick Fuentes has said. You know, be as sly as a snake, but as innocent as a dove. You know, be very careful as how you move in these times, and don't be reckless. Be unkillable, but don't be unwise either. And you guys have a great night. Thank you so much for listening. Hit the like button, like, share, and subscribe. Tell a friend to tell a friend. Good night, everybody.
It's done. It's done. It's done. It's done. It's done. It's done.